holiday, I hope.
Quiet.
Quiet, yes.
Okay, we are recording. We are live. Phone lines are open. You're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. So good evening and welcome to the first meeting of the Town of East Hampton Planning Board for 2022. And with the new year, we have some new faces. Well, one new face, that's Michael Hansen, who's a new member for the board. He's from Wainscott. And we welcome Michael and hope he has a productive 7 years with us. We also have a change of vice chair. Ian Calder Piedmont, Ian, is now going to be our vice chair. Our prior vice chair, Kathy Cunningham, has moved on and, well, I guess we can say up to the chairwoman or chairship of the Architectural Review Board. So those of you who are Kathy fans, you can still catch Kathy on LTV whenever they broadcast those ARB meetings. And also, we'd like to welcome Nancy Marshall. Nancy is our the attorney assigned to keep us all in check at the planning board, here at the planning board. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you.
Having your advice and following it. And with that, we will begin the first meeting. We have, actually, before we begin, I just want to remind our members that you all should have received this form, which is the instruction, well, it's the financial disclosure statement. There's an instruction sheet on the top. Please make sure that you comply. There is a filing deadline of January 20th. And it's a legal requirement, so please comply. Okay, now with that, let us begin the meeting. We've got 2 matters on for sub-waiver review, 2 matters on for site plan review, 1 matter on for urban renewal. Urban renewal map, we have a board of review, and we have 1 resolution. That will take later. But we also, for the members of the public, should know that we have 4 public hearings on for tonight. We have the Wainscott Sewing Society site plan. We have the Twinkle Farm Llc site plan. We have the 92 South Euclid Avenue site plan. And we have the CMP, I think that's a lot line modification and grand. Now, those are all scheduled for 7 p.m. We will go through them in the order that I just read them, one after the next. And and then we will return to the meeting, to the work sessions. With that in mind, I'm going to take 2 matters that I'm hopeful will be able to be taken care of before 7 p.m. And then we will continue, we'll do the public hearings and then move back to the site plan and sub-waiver reviews in the work session. So we're going to do, the first 2 things we're going to do are the Lot 72 LLC application. And then after that, we'll do the Gottlieb Renovation Unit 11 application. And for those of you keeping score at home, you'll see that Michael Hansen's name appears next to the Gottlieb renovation unit. But this being Michael's first meeting, that had been a matter that Kathy Cunningham was covering, and it's been shifted over to Michael. But this being Michael's first meeting, we're going to try to avoid baptisms by fire here, and Ian will take that. So actually, Ian, you've got both the Lot 72 LLC and the Gottlieb renovation, which with any luck, we'll take care of before 7 o'clock. So, long introduction, but hopefully short applications. Lot 72 LLC. Will Highland is on that. Ian is the board member. And do we have the representative for the applicants?
I will let them all in right now.
Thanks very much.
I will let them all in right now.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I believe this is Alice Cooley.
Ms. Cooley, I'm looking, there you are. Hi, Alan. Ms. Cooley, how are you? You're here for lot 72, 9 Oyster Shores Road. That's yours?
Yes, exactly.
Very good. Okay. All right. So with that one, that's Will. Go right ahead, Will.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, I'll just share screen here. Okay, so this is an application to divide the original parcel into 2 individual lots, as you can see here. The neighboring lots in the parcel would be residence and single-family residences. The western side of the lot has been historically cleared. The eastern side is uncleared. This application was previously reviewed by the planning board at the December 15th, 2021 meeting, where the board agreed to assume lead agency status, and that as soon as a revised map was submitted with the correct title of Map of Lot 72 LLC Minor Subdivision, the application will be ready to schedule for public hearing. As you can see, the title has been corrected to reflect that. So the application is now otherwise complete, provided that the board agrees. The planning department will prepare an environmental assessment form, parts 2 and 3, with negative declaration for an upcoming meeting. The planning board, as the agency which has requested lead agency status, is required to allow all involved agencies 30 days to respond to the lead agency request. As of the date of this memorandum, the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, the only other involved agency for the proposed action, has not responded. So, as I said, the application is now complete, and the planning department will prepare an EAF for an upcoming meeting to allow the 30-day lead agency period that began on December 16th to pass.
Very well. Does the applicant have anything, Ms. Cooley, that you'd like to add?
No, we just asked that the public hearing be scheduled.
I'm sorry?
We just asked that the public hearing be scheduled.
Very good. Thank you. Ian, would you like to report on this one?
Yeah, I think Will summed it up. I don't think that there's a lot to discuss at this point in this application. I think that by the next meeting, we should be ready for a EAF, assuming that we don't hear anything back from the county, which I don't expect. And otherwise, it's ready for a public hearing.
Very well. Do any board members have anything they wish to add on this application? In that case, do we all agree that the application is complete and should the planning department should prepare an EAF parts 2 and 3 with a negative declaration for presumably our next meeting?
Yes.
All around?
Yes.
We did talk about
No?
We did
Yes.
talk about a building envelope on this, or a setback from the water, but I don't know if we need to address that now.
I think we can take that up at another point. Okay. In that case,
Well, I mean, actually, if that is, we probably would want to make sure that that was part of a public hearing if it's something we want to do. But
what did the planning department memo have anything on that?
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was something that was the consensus of the board after the last meeting. I can double check though.
It was not.
Might be a good idea. Would it take very long, Eric, to see?
No, 2 minutes.
Okay, why don't you do that? But assuming that there was no consensus on that, are we ready to schedule this? To move forward by declaring it complete?
yeah, I am. I just wanted to. I just wanted to. If we're going to talk about it, I think now's the time. I'm not necessarily advocating for it. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, go past it. I understand.
Exactly.
Just wait for Eric to take it.
Sorry, just needed to unmute there. The board had 3 comments in its post-meeting memo. One was they declared lead agency status. The other said the applicant should submit a revised map with the correct title. And then the third was the application will be ready to be scheduled for a public hearing after a revised map is received. So there's nothing about a setback. And I will reiterate what Will Highland said in his initial evaluation, which is that the property is outside of natural resources special permit jurisdiction from 3 Mile Harbor.
I remember. Yes, okay.
And also, so the lot would be otherwise beholden to the regular setbacks for a lot of its size under zoning.
Yeah, there was some conversation about it was sort of colloquially referred to as near the area, but not in. So, okay. Well, with that, then, do we all agree that it's that the application is complete?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Cooley, we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next one that we will cover is the Gottlieb Renovation Unit 11. And that's Will again. And as I mentioned earlier, Ian is going to cover it for the board. And who's the representative, the applicant for this one?
Hi, I'm here for land planning in place of Lori tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome then. Okay. All right. Will, go ahead.
Excellent. Okay, this is the survey for a surf club. The application has been made to do a renovation to one unit. This unit right here specifically at the Surf Club Resort Rentals at 20 Surfside Avenue in Montauk. The renovation entails enclosing an existing open atrium for Unit 11 with new exterior walls and windows. There would be infill roofing and a skylight that would be added to the new roofed area. The application is outside any potential dune crest setback, and thus it would not require a natural resources special permit. It is not within a flood hazard zone and meets yard setback requirements. Pursuant to Chapter 255 of the Town Code, it appears that the application is small enough in scale to qualify as a minor site plan, and as a result, the planning board can elect to waive the public hearing requirement. So, given that it won't require an NRSP, unlike a previous application that was in this thing, it's not within the dune crest setback. It will not be affected by the flood zone, so it appears the application is complete. The board should decide whether or not to waive the public hearing requirement. And should they do so, it would appear it's complete and ready for approval.
Very good. Does the applicant have anything that wishes to add to the report?
No, Will covered it pretty well, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, Ian, would you like to discuss this one?
Yeah, again, I think Will, covered it. I think this is a pretty straightforward application. We had a similar one recently. I don't think it requires a public hearing, and I think it's ready for approval.
Okay, does anyone on the board disagree? Let's do first that it's complete. Does anyone disagree that it's complete? Hearing none. And does anybody on the board wish to have a public hearing scheduled with respect to this application?
No.
No? Okay. In that case, we will mark it complete, and we will see you the next time. What will be the next step on this one? Just sorry, for my notes here.
Resolution of approval.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we need. Okay. There's no public hearing. The application's ready, so we'll have a resolution prepared. And we'll be able to move on with this installation of a sunroof.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Since we did move expeditiously through those two matters, I think it'd probably be a useful use of our time to do the board of review and the approval on the Hand Lane South sub-waiver. Ian, that one's going to be yours also. So I'm going to read in the board of review on the application, the request, I should say, of Patrick Fallon, member of Fallon Family Partners, LLC, for a building permit on the premises located at 33 Washington Avenue in Springs, lots 1 through 15, including a portion of the Hawthorne Street right-of-way, block 27, urban renewal parcel 9, County Tax Map 300-58-6-1.1. The amount of the undertaking in this matter is $20,000. I'm sorry? It's $20,000. And I've reviewed the Board of Review and I move for its approval. Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there all those in favor of approving this Board of Review?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passed 7-0. And that leaves us with the application for the, I don't have that resolution. Ian, do you have the resolution?
I do have it, Sam.
On Hanley, or if you could please read that in.
Yep. In the matter of the application of Hanway South Subwaiver for a waiver of subdivision approval, I have read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed 7-0. All right, well, we have been so expedient that we now have 11 minutes. I think I don't want to sit here and twiddle our collective thumbs for 11 minutes. I think that it would probably be, I'm looking at the choices of the matters to go forward on. And I think because we've seen Nick Cohen before, maybe we can have Marco's report on Nick Cohen, and then we'll go. And Nancy, would it be all right for us to stop after Marco's report and then go into the public hearings and then come back?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Sam, we also have Greco, which is a pretty quick.
Well, you know what?
Okay.
I know. The thing is that we've heard Nick Cohen many times, and I think the board will be familiar with it pretty quickly. And so, as between the two, I think we're better off. We'll hear from Marco, and this is Mark. I see Mark Catta. I presume that is Mark Catalano on the, and I see Nick. So the applicant, can I get a hello from either of you guys?
Hey, board, how's it going?
Very good. Okay. You hear what I'm proposing?
Yes,
Is that okay with you?
sure.
Okay, very good. All right, Marco, you got 10 minutes. Tell us all about this.
Okay. Very quickly trying to put up the.
So quickly.
Trying my best. I'm just going to put up the aerial for the time being. Once it loads. So this was an application to construct a 26-foot by 40-foot or 1,040 square foot artist studio on a vacant 25,220 foot, 22 square foot parcel that's situated on Lafayette Place in Springs in a B residence zoning district. The applicant is in contract to purchase the parcel and owns and resides on an adjoining parcel containing a single family residence. So on this aerial at the moment, the parcel on the right is the one proposed to have the artist studio, and the one on the left is the applicant's single family residence. So a public hearing was held electronically by video and teleconferencing and LTV channel 22. A transcript of the hearing was posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing was to remain open until December 1st, 2021 for the purposes of written comments. One of the members of the public spoke at the hearing, and multiple written letters from the public have been submitted to the file. Members of the public raised concerns following the following issues. There was improper notice of public hearing. The size of the artist studio is excessive. The location of the artist studio is unsuitable. The artist studio use will cause commercial activity and increase traffic from visitors. Lafayette Place is a urban renewal road, and commercial activity may require road maintenance that will not be serviced by the town. The artist studio use will cause excessive noise. The outdoor storage of artworks would be in conflict with the residential neighborhood. The use of certain substances for artwork may cause potential contamination to groundwater, and the property is currently cleared in discordant with the local community character. The planning board attorney shall clarify if the public hearing was properly noticed. The applicant has submitted a narrative in response to the public comments, and I thought it was attached to this memo, but it might not be. It is in the file. The applicant has provided information regarding the artist studio's use, revegetation, and wastewater. I'll just put on the application, the site plan application, or the survey, I should say. It's on the screen. The planning board has discussed aspects such as the studio's size and use in previous work session meetings, as well as revegetation as part of a pending site plan application for clearing conducted on the property without a building permit. The town code, chapter 255-11-88, dictates and limits the size of the artist studio to 600 square feet, which is the maximum allowable, unless a certain number of factors have been determined. We have the property constraints make it difficult or impractical to construct a studio that is attached to the principal building, or to construct a studio that conforms to the size of an accessory structure. The applicant has justified the need for a larger studio based on the applicant's art form or the scope and size of the work. The size is compatible with the residential neighborhood. Provided the board does feel the aforementioned conditions can be met for greater than 600 square foot artist studio, the artist studio is then limited by 3 different factors, which is A, the gross floor area of the ground floor residence, which is 1,040 square feet would be the maximum, or an area equal to 5% of the area of the lot, or C, 2,500 square feet. So the lesser of those 3 would be part A, which is the gross floor area of the ground floor of the residence, meaning a maximum of 1,040 square feet. And that is the size of the studio which has been proposed. The nearby parcels consist of single-family residence, some having an accessory pool. Public comments have stated that the studio should be reduced in size and should be relocated further from the neighboring property lines. Although the planning board has approved few artist studio applications due to their recent addition to the code, the sizes of previously approved studios range from 450 square feet, for example, the Elizabeth Marin application, to 1,042 square feet, D'Agostino application. The board had previously agreed that the applicant can be considered an artist and that the size of the proposed detached artist studio is warranted. The board should consider the public's input and whether or not the artist studio should be reduced in size. The public comments have noted that the location of the artist studio is unsuitable due to the potential noise to neighboring properties. So on the survey, the studio is proposed in the top left corner of the property. For reference, the artist's single-family residence would be roughly over here. So the location is not exactly the closest, but the studio is proposed to be 30 feet from the northern property line, and is to be screened with 5 to 6 feet high Leyland cypress and laurels. The applicant has also indicated that the construction of the building will be insulated with spray foam, and the doors of the building will face opposite from the closest neighbors. The applicants have submitted a letter from a third party, which provides measurements on sound, the sound readings. So these sound readings were taken from the applicant's studio that's located in Sagaponic. The readings indicate a maximum sound output of 58 decibels and 48 decibels, with the studio door open and closed respectively. These measures are also taken 30 feet from the property line. For the board's reference, the maximum allowable noise levels at a residential property line are 65 decibels from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 50 decibels from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. The applicant has stated that all the work shall be done with the doors closed. As a reminder, the applicant resides on an adjoining parcel to the southwest, which contains their single-family residence, as I mentioned again. The studio is proposed on that northwestern portion and is adjacent to 176 3 Mile Harbor Road, which I believe is where my mouse cursor is. That is 176 3 Mile Harbor Road. Although the studio with the doors closed will meet the town's noise restrictions, the studio could be relocated further south that may potentially reduce noise to neighbors and be closer to the applicant's residence. The board should determine if they find the location of the artist studio to be acceptable in regards to potential noise and access. The studio also contains a sink and a proposed dry well. The applicant has stated that the water supply will be from a cistern that collects rainwater. There is no bath, shower, or toilet, and that's not permitted as well, as stated on the survey. The applicant has stated that any products such as lacquers and polyurethane shall be stored in a fireproof cabinet and will be disposed of at the yearly stop at the East Hampton transfer station. As a condition of the artist studio approval, no toxic materials or waste shall be disposed of in the sink. The public comments raised the concern that the artist studio would result in an increase of commercial activity. It is noted in the town code for an artist studio that it should only be used for the use approved by the planning board as described in their determination and is subject to all the conditions set in there. There shall be no commercial exhibits of art open to the public on the property, no commercial classes or other public events, and no additional parking may be constructed on the site to service the studio, except those exhibits that are part of an approved, organized, and advertised tour of an artist studio, or pursuant to an approved art sale special event permit. Under those conditions of approval and artist studio declaration, the applicant is to maintain the studio for the use of an artist studio. Absent of such conditions, the artist studio will have to be removed or reduced to an accessory structure with a conforming use. The public has also raised concern about potential outdoor storage of artwork and materials. The applicant has stated that there is no public showings and that deliveries of any large materials will be done no more than 1 to 2 times per month and do not involve large machinery. The applicant is recommended to clarify if any works are to be stored outdoors, and the planning board may wish to have as a condition of approval that no works may be stored outside or should be properly screened. As mentioned previously, the subject property was cleared without receiving a valid building permit. They have submitted a site plan application to rectify the cleared areas by proposing a split rail fence, multiple native plantings as revegetation. The planning board has discussed their proposed revegetation plan and found the measures to mitigate those impacts acceptable. The maximum clearing permitted on the lot is 16,305 square feet, and the existing clearing is about 15,805. As proposed, this will reduce the overall clearing to 13,838, which is about 55% of the lot. As mentioned previously, the studio is to be screened with the plantings, a 25-foot wide vegetation buffer with the fence, split rail fence to Lafayette Place is proposed as well. And the revegetation itself consists of 5 individual 8-foot to 10-foot tall trees, multiple shrubs, and other native plantings. The board should discuss if any additional screening towards the neighboring properties or additional plantings should be proposed. The public hearing for the site plan portion of the artist studio was previously waived by the planning board. However, given the significant public input of the artist studio, the board may require an additional public hearing for public comments. The board should consider if they wish to hold a public hearing for the site plan portion of the artist studio prior to approval. So in conclusion, provided the board agrees the artist studio application is complete and the board should form a consensus on whether or not to grant approval. The planning board should also determine if an additional public hearing for the site plan portion of the artist studio is required. In addition, the board should consider if any other details regarding the studio's use should be submitted, or if the design of the studio should be altered in size and location.
Thank you very much, Marco. And it looks as though we have successfully brought ourselves to 7 o'clock, actually 7:02. So the board will resume this conversation, or actually commence our conversation. When we come back to this, Mr. Cohen and Mr. Catalano, you'll have the floor. You're free to respond to planning department's report. For now, however, we will go forward with as I say earlier, we have 4 public hearings on for tonight. And, so that folks understand the way these work in these times of COVID, there should be a scroll across the top of the screen with a telephone number for the public to call in. I guess, Matt, we're going to have to make sure that the people who are calling in about the particular public hearing that we're addressing, because we're going to do them one at a time in seriatim. So let's, I'll just ask everybody to be a little patient and make sure that you are calling about you say which application you wish to speak on. And if we need to have you wait till we get to that application, we'll ask you to wait. What will happen is, in each case, the board member with responsibility for oversight of the application will read the public hearing notice. I will then ask Nancy Marshall, our attorney, whether or not the board has jurisdiction. In other words, whether the notice has been given in accordance with the code. And if it has, then we will move forward with the public hearing. Actually, before that, the planning department will give the board a brief overview of the application, and then the public will be allowed to speak. The way we do these is that the public, any member of the public can speak for 3 minutes. Then once all the members of the public who wish to speak on that application have had an opportunity to speak, if any member of the public wishes to add to their previous comments, they'll be given another 3 minutes if they need that much time. Once all the members of the public have spoken, the applicant will have the opportunity to respond, if it wishes, to the comments of the public. So, I hope everybody understands that, and hopefully we'll do it the way I just described. With that, the first application, again, we're going to do Wainscott Sewing Society, then Twinkle Farm Llc, then 92 South Euclid Avenue, and then CMP SJ, which is the site plan, the subdivision, I should say, in Amagansett. Randy, you've got the Wainscott Sewing Society. If you could please read the notice. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Does anyone have the notice handy?
I don't have it. Jody, do you?
I sent it to everybody earlier, but I'll send it now.
All right, Randy, be on the lookout. Lou, I see that you have 2 of these. Do you have the 2 that you need?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I have mine.
Lou, you've got 2. You've got Twinkle Farm and you've got CMP. Yeah, both of those? Okay.
Yes.
And
I have mine.
You got 92 South Euclid. Okay.
Yeah.
And Randy?
Yeah.
Through the magic of computers, do you now have yours?
Let me see. Sorry. Paste. For some reason, I'm not getting through to the town website.
I just sent it to your email.
Oh, you did to Gmail?
Your email. Randy
Yeah,
Parsons at Hampton.
Your town email address, Randy.
Yeah, some reason it's not, the town site, it's not opening. Could you send it to me at Gmail, Jody?
I don't have that address.
Okay. Here,
Does anyone else have the? No, I'm seeing my board members shaking their heads no. And I'm sorry, we'll have to wait a moment for Randy to get the application so he can read it.
I could even put it up on screen share it if you want. You can read
All
it
right.
off the screen.
All right,
Sure.
so that works. And the whole public will read along with Randy.
Just, here we go. I'll start here. Tell me if you need me to zoom in or anything like that.
Okay. Public hearing notice. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter as this matter may be heard. To consider the application of Wainscott Sewing Society site plan approval pursuant to Article 6 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code to abandon an existing sanitary system and install a low nitrogen IA septic system, add a bathroom, provide handicapped access pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act, and provide 2 parking spaces on site at the Wainscott Chapel. The property contains 15,000 square feet, 0.344 acres, and is located on the north side of Main Street, Wainscott, and is situated in an A2 resident zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton. Identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcels 300-200-1-12. I don't see just one parcel. Subject application is classified as a type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128, Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A survey prepared by F. Michael Hemmer, LLC, dated August 27th, 2021. A set of plans prepared by D.B. Bennett, PE, PC, dated revised November 16th, 2020, including site plan, I can't tell what that says, and sanitary, C1 and sanitary detail C2, and a set of plans prepared by Bruce A.T. Siska, AIA, dated September 17th, 2021, including proposed floor plan A1.02, proposed elevations A2.01, and existing elevations C2.01 are available for inspection at the Planning Board office, 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV, Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until January 19th. That should be 2022, says 2021, for the purpose of receiving written comments, or within 1 week of posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehamptonny.gov and by mail to 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York 11937, and received on or before close of business January 19th, 2022.
And the second time we got 2022.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Nancy, do we have jurisdiction on this public hearing?
Yes, Chairman, I've reviewed the affidavit and the postal receipts, and it appears that there's proper notice.
Okay, very well. I apologize for not knowing which member of the planning department had responsibility for this, but Eric, is it you?
That would be Will. He's getting the map right now.
Okay, very good. All right, Will, if you could give us a brief overview of the application, give the public that.
Yeah. Sharing screen. Okay. Yeah, this was an application to abandon the existing sanitary system and install a low nitrogen IA septic system, add a bathroom, provide handicap access pursuant to the ADA, and provide 2 parking spaces on site at Wainscott Chapel, overseen, preserved, and maintained by the Wainscott Sewing Society. Other than these new additions, the existing use of the property as Wainscott's non-denominational community center by various religious community and self-help organizations won't change. The parcel is located on Main Street in Wainscott. It is zoned A2 residence and is not located within the overlay district or scenic area of statewide significance. It's near the Wainscott Pond. Not really sure what else there is to this one. That's fine. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. When it was reviewed by the planning board, it was determined that they found the proposed installation of a sanitary system and the removal of the existing outhouse and installation of a new restroom on site to be acceptable, and that they should install an ADA-approved parking area with the driveway to be unimproved.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Matt, I guess you're going to be the gatekeeper here. So if you could let us know if there are members of the public who wish to comment with respect to this application.
We do have one caller. I do not know for what application, but we do have one caller.
Let's bring them on and ask if they're here for the Wainscott Sewing Society.
Okay, now we have 2 callers. I will take the first one ending in 3420.
Hello.
Yes, hi. Could you state your name and address, and just tell us which public hearing you'd like to speak on?
Well, hello, Sam Kramer. This is Naomi Sauls, and I was supposed to be reading a letter from Rhoda Klopman, who's out of town. It's about one of your issues.
Well, Naomi, we're doing public hearings right now. Is this about the Wainscott Sewing Society's public hearing?
No, it's not. No. I don't know about any of the things you're discussing.
We have 4 public hearings on. The 4th one is a lot line modification in Amagansett. So why don't you take a look and see? That may be the one you're here on.
All right. Well, it is Amagansett. It's Marine Boulevard.
Okay, if you don't mind waiting a little bit.
189.
Okay, we're not up to that one yet. We're not up to that one yet. So if you don't mind, thanks very much. Okay.
Sure.
Matt?
Okay,
thank you very much.
So I will mute the first caller, and I will go on to the second caller, ending in 0299.
Hello, caller.
Good evening. Members of the planning. Can you hear me?
Yes, if you could give us your name and address and tell us which application, because we have 4 public hearings on for tonight. Which public hearing are you here on?
My name is Carolyn Logan Gluck. I live at 119 Sayers Path in Wainscott, and I'm calling with regard to the public hearing concerning the Wainscott Chapel.
Very well. Ms. Gluck, you have 3 minutes. Please go right ahead.
I'm calling to fully support this application. The Wainscott Chapel is one of the pillars of the Wainscott community and the only gathering place indoors for the community. It serves many groups, but it could serve many, many more if it had adequate facilities. The women of the Wainscott Sewing Society have done an incredible amount of work to maintain this chapel in circumstances that have not been all that easy because there are few ways in which the chapel can generate revenue. Being able to add ADA accessibility, 2 parking spaces, and an internal bath facilities would alter the way in which the chapel could be used in the future and serve not only the Wainscott community, but a broader community. So I just wanted to advocate for your support for this these changes to be made to the chapel, and I hope you will do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate hearing from you. Okay, Matt, do we have anybody else who wishes to be heard from the public on this?
There is 0 additional callers for this topic.
Very well. I did see before, there's Dennis D'Andrea. Dennis, I presume you're here for the applicant?
Yes, I am.
Okay, if you have anything that you would like to add before we close the spoken portion of the public hearing, the floor is yours.
I think it's very needed to have the improvements because, like 2 days ago, it was 25 degrees and the people using the chapel have to sit down in an outhouse. So that's been, moments like that have been difficult. And there is no other meeting place in Wainscott. So it's quite a necessity. And I thank you for hearing me.
I'll have one correction. It was 11 degrees.
The record will reflect that it was 11 degrees. Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
I know that you're the attorney on this. I didn't want to give you any short shrift. Did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
No. I think all the information that Mr. Highland gave you was up to date. There's been nothing new since the board last heard this, and we would simply ask the application be approved. Thank you.
Very well. Okay, with that, if I can get a motion to close, well, actually, we don't need a motion on this. The way we've been working these during COVID is that we will now close the public spoken comment portion of the public hearing, and you now have until, what was the date, Randy? The 30th?
19th.
29th. Thank you very much. The 19th to present any written comments, and then that will end the public hearing. Okay?
Thank you.
Now, thank you all. Thank you very much. Dennis, Barbara, thank you. We will now move to Twinkle Farm LLC. And Lou, if you would please read the public notice on that.
This is the public hearing notice. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of Twinkle Farm site plan approval pursuant to Article 6 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code to construct a 68-foot by 24-foot, 1,632 square feet storage equipment barn, a 16-foot by 26-foot, 8-inch, 428 square feet greenhouse, 71,503 square feet of cultivated space, an accessory driveway and walkway. The property contains 90,386 square feet, 2.075 acres, and is located on the west side of Green Hollow Road, East Hampton, and is situated in an A3 residence Agricultural Reserve Area zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton and are identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcels number 300-193-2-9.7. Subject application is classified as a type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128, Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A survey prepared by George Walbridge Surveyors, PC, dated revised March 17, 2021, and a set of plans prepared by Richard Searles Architect, PC, dated revised September 29, 2021, including site plan S-1, sanitary system plan, details and notes S-2, project information C-1, foundation plan A-1, first floor plan A-2, loft floor area A-3, roof plan A-4, sections east and west elevations and notes A-5, north and south elevations A-6 are available for inspection at the Planning Board offices, 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until January 19, 2022, for the purpose of receiving written comments or within 1 week of posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehamptony.gov and by mail to 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937, and received on or before close of business January 19, 2022.
Thank you very much, Lou. Nancy, do we have jurisdiction on this?
Yes, we do, Chair. I've reviewed the affidavit and the certified mail receipts, and it appears that it was proper service.
Very well. And which member of the planning department was responsible for this one?
That was me.
Will, is it you?
Yeah.
Give us a brief overview.
I'll share the survey again. Okay, this was an application to create a storage equipment barn, a greenhouse, 71,000 square feet of cultivated space, an accessory driveway, and a walkway on a roughly 90,000 square foot parcel in East Hampton. It was zoned residence in an agricultural reserve area that was subject to a grant of agricultural easement from 2014. It was considered to be vacant at the time. At the previous, it went through a bunch of previous reviews by the planning board. And at the most recent review, it was determined that the applicant would be allowed to keep the agricultural barn where it is currently located on the site plan. Given that they did relocate the proposed gravel driveway and walkway in order to accommodate the preservation of 3 existing beech trees, which are visualized on the plans here. Given the orientation of the barn proposed driveway, the planning department saw the issue was resolved. They also submitted additional sanitary system plans, sanitary calculations, and a cross-section of the system design. All prior concerns were addressed there. They provided lighting details that confirmed lighting fixtures would be fully cut off and comply with applicable regulations of the town code, as well as guidelines for exterior lighting. And they also provided thorough floor plans for the barn that include floor area and notation stating the barn will be designed to meet the planning board's groundwater protection policy. It was determined that all of the requirements outlined in previous meetings were met, and that the application will be ready for approval.
Thank you very much. Well, Matt, do we have any callers on? I know we had Ms. Sills on. She's here for the last one on Amagansett. Is there anybody else on the?
There is zero additional callers for this topic. Thank you.
Very well. Okay, Mr. Egan, this was yours, if I recall. And
yes,
you want to add something?
yes.
Floor is yours.
No, other than say good evening to you and the board, and wish you all happy New Year. We appreciate the effort the board put into this application, and we look forward to and ask that you approve it.
Very well, thank you. As you heard, the public hearing will be left open for written comment for a brief while, and then we'll move forward. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is 92 South Euclid, and Sharon, that's yours.
Yeah, okay. So take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of 92 South Euclid Avenue site plan approval pursuant to Article 6 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code, to construct a two-story, 1,188 square foot commercial building with an 8-foot by 27 covered porch, an 8-foot by 15 covered porch, and two 8-by-6 decks, and a 1,188 square foot apartment. A basement with 900 square foot storage space and a mechanical room is also proposed. The property contains 4,100 square feet, which is 0.094 acre, and is located on the southeasterly side of South Euclid Avenue, Montauk, and is situated in a central business zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and are identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcels 300-49-1-15. Subject application is classified as a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128, which is the Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A survey prepared by George Walbridge Surveyors, dated revised October 13th, 2021, a set of plans prepared by Jeffrey Sands Architect, dated revised October 12th, 2021, including site light plan, foundation plan, first floor plan, second floor plan, elevations, and section, I guess, proposed sanitary system, and details prepared by Edward Armis Engineering, PLLC, dated revised October 14th, 2021, and a planting plan prepared by East Land Planning, dated revised October 13th, 2021, are available for inspection at the Planning Board offices, 300 Pantico Place, Suite 103, East Hampton. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, channel 22, and available for live stream on LTV website, which is ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until January 19th, 2022, for the purpose of receiving written comments, or within 1 week of the posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehhamptonny.gov and by mail to 300 Pantico Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937, and received on or before close of business, January 19th, 2022. Samuel Kramer, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Yeah.
Nancy, do we have jurisdiction on this one?
Yes, we do, Chairman. I've reviewed the affidavit provided as well as the certified postal receipts, and it does appear that it was properly noticed.
Very well. In that case, Matt, do we have anybody on line who wishes, or in line, I should say, who wishes to speak?
You have 0 calls on this topic. Thank you.
Very good. And I see 4 different attorneys whom I know in town. Is this Andrew Strong's application? Did I pick right on that one?
You picked right. You picked right. Well done. Attorney roulette. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say something about 4 kings, but I don't want to.
You flatter. Yeah.
If you have anything you'd like to add on this, go right ahead.
We don't. This has been, it's been a long process. The board has seen this application numerous times, and I'm very happy with where we've landed on it, and look forward to moving forward. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks
Sorry,
very much.
Just a quick note. I think the size might be a little bit different for the scheduled public hearing notice. I think it is actually 1,058 square foot commercial building and 1,058 square foot apartment. I think there's just a small minor details that should be clarified. I think just the sizes are a little bit different. That's all.
Okay, Nancy, I don't think we have to. Do we have to do anything about that?
No, it's such a minor difference in the thing. I think proper notice was given.
Very well.
At least it's smaller, right?
That too, yeah.
At least it's smaller.
Right.
You're going to go in the wrong way.
Exactly.
It's a mistake to be made. So. Okay. All right. In that case, Mr. Strong, thank you very much, and we'll move this along. All right. So this brings us to the final one, which is CMP, SJ, and Lou. If you would read the public notice on this.
Yep, the public hearing notice. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of CMP SJ lot line modification approval pursuant to Chapter 220 subdivision of land of the East Hampton Town Code to reconfigure the lot lines of 2 parcels. Lot 1 will transfer 10,692 square feet to lots 2. This is to allow an existing 1,039 square foot 2-bedroom cottage on lot 1 to be situated on lot 2. No physical changes to the site are proposed. The property is located on the south side of Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, and are situated in a B residence zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and are identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcels number 300-176-8-22, 23. Subject application is classified as a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, Part 617 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations, and Chapter 128, Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code. A survey prepared by Saskus Surveying Company, dated revised December 11, 2020, is available for inspection at the Planning Board offices, 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until January 19, 2022. for the purpose of receiving written comments or within 1 week of posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehamptony.gov and by email to 300 Pantago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York 11937, and received on or before close of business, January 19, 2022.
Thank you very much, Lou. And Nancy, do we have jurisdiction on this one?
Again, Chairman, I've reviewed the affidavit and the Postal Service receipts, and it does appear that there was proper notice.
Very well. And the planning department, Eric, who's got this particular application?
Will present it.
Go ahead, Will.
All right, hang on one second. Okay. This was an application to. This was an application submitted to the planning board to reconfigure the lot line of two parcels by transferring area from lot 1 to lot 2. This would allow an existing 1,039 square foot 2-bedroom cottage on lot 1 to be situated on lot 2. No physical changes to the site were proposed. The parcels are situated in Amagansett off Marine Boulevard and are Zone B residents. They are also situated within the Coastal Erosion Overlay District and Flood Hazard Overlay District. They are improved with they are both improved with two-story single-family residences, as well as associated accessory structures. They front on the Atlantic Ocean and are roughly bisected by a primary dune. The application went through an extensive review process by the Zoning Board of Appeals. At the time, they submitted a new survey to the planning board that reflected said review process, and in doing so, addressed many of the previous concerns from that review regarding map revisions. At that point, it was pretty much determined that it was ready for a public hearing.
Very well. Thanks very much. Okay. Matt, we had a caller on before Ms. Stalls. Is she still there with us?
Yes, they are. We actually have two callers, but I will unmute the first one right now at last four digits, 3420.
Okay. Hello, caller.
Hi.
If you can give us hi.
Yeah.
That's you, Ms. Stalls?
Yes, it is.
Hello?
And
Okay.
I'm calling in to read into the record comments from a neighbor, Rhoda Klopman, who lives at 184 Marine Boulevard.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. This is to the planning board chair and members of the planning board. Lot line modification. 183-189 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett. SCTM number 300-176-8-22. Sands Capital Holding LLC owners. SCTM number 300-176-8-23. Otis Real Estate Holdings LLC. Sands Capital Holding LLC and the owner, Mr. Belsky, have chosen to justify his own personal goals by ignoring the East Hampton zoning code and the head building inspector, Ann Glennon's decision to deny this lot modification on the basis of creating a non-conforming lot for SCTM number 300, number 176-8-23. I support Ann Glennon's decision as it creates 2 single-family residences on a conforming property per zoning code 255-2-45. Number of uses. With regard to these changes in allowable coverage, the planning board should note that the proposed lot line modification would increase the size of Lot 2, resulting in a larger allowable building coverage, accounting for the addition of the cottage, and the total lot coverage. These numbers are, as stated in Mr. Shant's evaluation, would increase by 846 square feet and 3,957 square feet, respectively. A perfect solution for Belsky to sell the property for a large sum, and therefore the possibility for a McMansion to be built on the dunes in the future. An environmental disaster waiting in the wings. My opinion goes along with my knowledge of the property and how the, quote, deal, unquote, unfolded between Mr. Belsky, Sand Capital, LLC, and Mr. Hirsch, Otis Capital Real Estate, LLC, the builder of 189 Marine Boulevard, the property where the cottage is actually a part of. The legality of the lot lines of the two properties were ignored by both parties in exchange for the Belsky family getting a buyer for the 189 Marine Boulevard. The buyer was a New York City apartment building neighbor of the Belsky family named Plempler, an apartment building in which the Belsky family lives the majority of time. It should be noted here that under oath at the ZBA hearing, Mr. Belsky swore that he lived at 183 Marine Boulevard full-time. Not exactly a truthful statement under oath. I have seen the house occupied for approximately 1 or 2 weekends since Labor Day weekend. The cottage was given over to Mr. Belsky as payment for the deal for getting a $21 million buyer for the property. Mr. Belsky then proceeded to renovate the cottage to resemble his house, despite not getting town approval. Not exactly how East Hampton real estate deals are made while ignoring any zoning code laws. South Capital LLC. Yes.
Naomi, if I could just interrupt, just let me know, because you're past time. How much more do you think you have? Just give me
I'd say about 2 minutes, maybe.
all right, why don't you finish up then? Go ahead.
All right,
You only have one other call, so go ahead.
Okay. South Capital LLC continued to violate the building inspector's letter that it was illegal to create a non-conforming lot to SCTM 300-7176-8-22, since it would create 2 residences on a conforming property, and the ZBA appeal Birch Tree Partners LLC 10/20/2010, and the number of uses being created would be non-conforming. Mr. Belsky had his friend Hirsch, the builder of 189 Marine Boulevard, plant trees around the cottage to recreate a feeling of being a continuation of Belsky's own property. If this lot line modification is approved, the property will have 2 walkways to the beach, one at 183 Marine and one at the cottage 189 Marine, as well as non-conformity issues. Although there was a discussion at the ZBA that this should be mitigated, Mr. Belsky has done nothing to comply with the legal decision to remove the cottage walkway to the beach addressed by the town attorney. One more little paragraph. In addition to this planning board hearing, the ZBA public hearing had letters from residents contacted by Mr. Belsky to support his lot line modification application. Mr. Gerald Bedrin, who lives 2 houses to the west of Belsky and 195 Marine, wrote that residents who opposed this variance request were obstructionists. It should be noted that Bedrin now has his property for sale at a price of $12,500,000. So it is obvious that Mr. Belsky requested this letter of support from his neighbor who is now selling his property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for the record, that went past 6 minutes. So if there are any other people in the public who wish to speak, I'm going to allow them the same amount of time. So thank you, Naomi. Appreciate it. Okay, Matt, do we have anybody else? I think you said we had one other caller.
Yes, we actually have 2 additional callers. I'm going to unmute the next one right now. Last 4 digits, 4221.
Hello, caller. If you could please give us your name and your address, and I'll grant you 6 minutes, because that's the way
I've lost
So,
myself
go right
at
ahead.
3 minutes and 5
All
seconds, so hopefully I'll come in under. Good evening, Chairman Kramer. My name is Jane Meering. I live at 32 Ocean Lane in Beach Hampton, Amagansett. The properties before you tonight are directly at the end of my block.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Chairman Kramer and Planning Board members, Happy New Year. I just want to note that I offered spoken and written comments regarding this application for lot line modification when the matter was before the ZBA in March 2021. In advance of this evening, I submitted to the Planning Board a letter summarizing my current thoughts, as well as a copy of what I had submitted to ZBA. My concerns and views have remained mostly unchanged since March 2021. But I do note that the intervening months have seemed to throw into question the two key assertions of needs for which they are requesting relief. First, that the applicant and family have moved full-time to 183 Marine, and second, that the sole need for the cottage is for a place for parents/grandparents to live during their frequent stays. However, plain for all to see with no untoward surveillance is that 183 is not a full-time residence and that the cottage has seemingly hosted meaningful transient use by multiple visitors. So I just want to review my three primary concerns. First, the applicant's failure to disclose intent and their entire lack of transparency about their plans over the 4 years of development that led to this application. Though an agreement to transfer this property was hatched perhaps as far back as 2016, those intentions seem to have been strategically withheld from oversight of the approving boards and departments as well as the public. My view is that caused harm in that it precluded full considerations of all redevelopment options on 189, options that might have mitigated its extremely negative impact on neighborhood character. Second, the potential to create increased intensity of use and density on 183. And third, the potential for precedent to be created and exploited. I think it is entirely reasonable, contrary to what the applicants have asserted, to anticipate that an approval could be construed as an affirmation of two uses and or will lead to multiple requests for subdivisions and combinations that could have a deleterious impact on this fragile neighborhood. So all in, my first ask to the Planning Board this evening is to deny this application, given what I detailed, and reflecting on Ann Glennon's denial relative to code. Moreover, I see this problem solely of the applicant's making, and there have been ways to meet their stated needs in a more minimal and less non-conforming way. But I know that denial doesn't solve the problem. It just shifts it, as Beyonce would say, to the left, to the left. So the second prong of my request is that if the Planning Board does in its wisdom see fit to permit the lot line change, that if possible, approval be made solidly conditional on a set of specific conditions and covenants regarding, among other things, usage, rental, subdividing, expanding, as well as easements and a completed new IA for the main house, IA septic system for the main house. I've outlined these mitigation suggestions in my letter to you. I thank you for the opportunity to comment and have my thoughts considered.
Thank you very much. And that was 2 minutes and 59 seconds, just so you know.
I'll take the rest. I'll take the rest on account. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Matt, we said we had another caller. Do we have only one?
Yes, we do. We have just one additional caller, and I'm going to unmute them now. Last four digits, 5833.
Very good, caller.
Good evening. My name is Jack Hasid, and I live at 186 Marine Boulevard, which is for 40 years, which is directly across the street from 183 and 189. And I'm not going to repeat, I've submitted a letter, but I'm not going to repeat the history of this application that Ms. Meering so well summarized. My concern, and that I think the Planning Board should be concerned about, is approval of this will be basically validating a bait and switch. And it's not something that I think this board should give approval to with respect to the future. Because what happened here is that the cottage, the presence of the cottage, was used as a basis to get more of a variance for 189, when the parties clearly knew and understood that they were going to have the lot line modification with respect to the cottage. In fact, the owner of 183 bragged to all of us how he was spending $500,000 on renovating the cottage before he even knew whether or not the lot line modification should be approved. And I don't think that's kind of conduct should be in any way rewarded or approved by the planning authorities. And I would just refer the board to the letter that I submitted with respect to more particulars, because I don't want to take up your valuable time at this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, Matt, we have anybody else, or is that?
There are 0 additional callers. Thank you.
I would like to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Whalen, is this yours?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
You're not the representative of the...
I am not the representative.
Okay, very well.
I do have an opinion here.
Okay,
so, Richard Whalen, I'm speaking here as a private citizen. I did represent the owner of this property, well, the westerly owner, Brett Hirsch, at 189 Marine Boulevard, when the house was built. I don't represent him now, but I do want to explain and justify the lot line modification that's requested here. I was very involved in that application. There was an existing house that was located directly on the primary dune. It was once the residence of Sonia Henny. It was built in the early 1940s. And the house that you see on Marine Boulevard right now in 189 had to be built where it is today because of the town's coastal setback regulations and because of FEMA regulations, which require very high first floor elevation. So to the extent that building that house impacted neighborhood character, the house had to be built on the road. The existing house was on the primary dune. It was environmentally sensible to remove that and build a new house in a conforming location. So the owner simply did what the town zoning regulations required. I know the history of the property. The cottage is pre-existing to the 1957 town zoning regulations. My understanding, because I know this is what the idea was back in the day, is that cottage will be shifted to the easterly lot. There's no increase in density. You have the same number of primary buildings and one cottage on the same amount of acreage. So the comments I've just heard from the 3 neighbors, they don't really have a grounding in reality. This is basically, you're moving the lot line so that the cottage is now on the easterly lot instead of on the westerly lot. This has no effect on anybody. So again, I'm not directly involved in the application anymore. I do not represent the owner, but I do know the history of the property, and there are no grounds to deny the lot line modification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, are there any other members of the public who wish to be heard regarding this application? And in that case, I believe Mr. Hammer is the attorney on this one. Am I correct on that?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Happy New Year to everybody, and welcome to our new members and new council to the board. It's my great pleasure to be here tonight. I was hoping I didn't have to say anything, but I wanted to make a really brief statement. Rather than getting into the public comments that were made, I would just say that they mischaracterize facts, procedures, the intent of the application, its histories, the use and historical use and current use of the property, as well as they're largely irrelevant to the current application in front of the board, but I do think that they should be addressed in that fashion. My clients are actually listening to this and are on hold, might call in if they have anything to add, but my brief statements, I just want to say that, as the planning department said, we're very pleased the zoning board took a very hard look at this application. I think they used thorough and evaluated all the arguments, issuing a determination of finding that we met the variance standard associated with the grant of the variance from the town code section 255-245A as discussed in the documents. Finding, and I will quote, that the grant of the variance would have little adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. That's a direct quote from the zoning board determination and was based on a careful and meaningful consideration of the property, the application, and lots of other metrics that are more relevant for the zoning board application in their determination to grant us the variance. By obtaining the variance, our current application thoroughly complies with zoning. We require no relief from the town code other than this application, which is made pursuant to Chapter 222-18 of the town code, adjustment of lot lines. This section, which has been part of the town subdivision laws for as long as the the town code, to my knowledge, provides its own standard for review, requiring that the town planning department review the application and inform the planning board in writing that the division will have no significant environmental effect and will not make future planning of either of the affected parcels more difficult or impossible, and 3, poses no other immediate or potential problem which would justify a more thorough review by this board. I think it's fair to say that literally dozens of applications that I am personally aware of, and probably many times that have been, that I don't have any knowledge of, have been approved by the planning board based on this fairly simple standard. The standard at first blush appears largely absorbed by the much more inclusive, verbose, and demanding standards exacted to qualify for the grant of a variance under our town code as well as New York state law. The variance standards provide the benefit to the applicant must outweigh the detriment to the general health, welfare, and safety of the town to qualify. And this is just one of the relevant standards that's part of a multi-pronged inquiry necessary to obtain and qualify for the grant of the variance. Not only would this seem to subsume the adjustment of lot line standard, but expand it and exceed it significantly. I would respectfully submit to the board that the grant of the proposed lot line modification will have no environmental impact at all. A finding was made by the zoning board after review of the application by the planning department, and the planning concerns that we respect and abide by are in no way complicated or implicated by the grant of the requested lot line modification by the planning board. Not only is the applicant requesting an approval that exists on paper alone, as the structures exist and will remain absolutely identical after the grant of the requested lot line modification, the mitigation proposed, which includes the upgrade of the sanitary system on 183 Marine Boulevard to a low nitrogen system, will provide a significant environmental benefit not otherwise required on this residence. We also extended scenic easement to provide cognizant and identical protection along the entire shorefront here. After the lot line modification, the lots are subject to the same stringent zoning requirements that our town code requires of all lots. Gross floor area limitations, limitations on lot coverage, building coverage, required wetland and bluff crest setbacks, the list goes on. This application had a very thorough review by the planning department as related to the area variance application, and no further review is warranted for this board to approve our application. I did want to point out an unusual fact here is that basically the lot line variance the variance that we were granted is basically nearly the identical inquiry that you're engaging in right now. I couldn't ask, we could not ask for approval based on the lot line, the grant of the variance not being granted. That's why we came to you today. We have our variance in our hand. So there is a little bit of a sense of deja vu that I think is somewhat justified, but I do submit that we have qualified for the grant of the lot line, adjustment of lot line requested, and all the relevant standards, and perhaps even in spade. I also wanted to comment that I really need to up my Zoom game. I look at Lou's really cool furniture and art, and I see Sharon has like a profile thing going on. It's very, it's very, very disheartening, but I'll work on that for future. Other than
You've
that,
got McKinney's. Come on, you can't get more lawyer than that.
That's okay. I just want to have a more cinematic entrance, I guess.
You're doing fine.
I'm just available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, sorry about that. All right. Well, we don't do questions and answers during public hearings, so we can wiseacre comments by the chair is another thing. But it's only for you to speak and us to listen. So, if there is no further comment.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is LTV. We have one caller calling back right now.
Is it a caller? Well, let's find out who it is, because if it's a caller who was on before, let's see who it is.
Okay.
Maybe it's Mr.
Caller ending in 5833.
Caller, can you identify yourself?
I just have, yes, it's Jack Hassett. I spoke earlier, and I'm only saying something for like 1 minute, and that is, I think the board should ask, because the zoning board never asked, as why this unitary transaction as between 183 and 189 was not brought before the zoning board together. Why didn't they ask both for the variance and for the lot modification? Because then the whole transaction could have been seen as a whole and the variance evaluated as a whole. But they didn't do that, and I believe we know the reason why they didn't do that. And that's all I have to say, and I thank you for the additional time.
Quite all right, Mr. Hammer. I'll give you the opportunity to respond if you like.
I'm not even sure how to respond to that assertion, but I would say that all the relevant facts, circumstances, etc., were in fact part of our variance application. And in fact, the cottage on this property was leased by one of the adjacent owner. That's what kind of prompted the idea that this would be an application that we would jointly participate in, which is perfectly permissible under the zoning code as well.
Okay. All right, very well. With that, then, we'll again close the spoken portion of the public hearing, and there'll be some additional time now for written comments to come in, and then the board will take up the application somewhere down the road. Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to now, that was precisely 1 hour. We will now move to back into the work session, and we appreciate Mr. Cohen and Mr. Catalano's patience and waiting. If they would like to respond to the report that Planning Department that Marco gave us, please go right ahead.
Hello, board. This is Nick Cohen, applicant. I guess we should just move forward. I'm here to answer any questions. I appreciate all this time we've had together, and we'll see how this meeting goes at the end.
Very well. Thank you very much. And again, thanks for your patience. Randy, you are the board's point person on this, so go right ahead. You're muted. You're muted.
I think we're getting close on this one. I wanted to mention a couple of things to Nancy Marshall. I don't know if this new section that moved the review and approval of artist studios to the planning board. What I'm going for here is that I'm not sure that this is the first time I've seen a artist studio, which is an accessory use, proposed on a vacant lot with no principal use. And my question to Nancy, which I'm not looking for an answer now, but for our future discussions of this, is do the existing artist studio covenants, there's sort of a boilerplate covenant, do you think it contemplates this slightly different animal of an artist, detached artist studio accessory use on a vacant lot with no principal use? And does the covenant cover the various things that we want to avoid, such as, obviously sale or rental of the studio separate from the person we've approved it for, et cetera. Anyway, that's one thought, which I think we'll be able to work through. So Marco did a great job summarizing. I would say, since we're being asked to look at this as a site plan, there are some things that are not yet shown on the plan that we would normally want on a plan that we're ready to approve, or at least a verbal answer. For example, We don't know where the dry well is proposed to be located. I mean, I think we'd like to see that on the survey.
It's on the survey.
It is.
It is.
Oh, sorry. I
Number
didn't.
53.
Right.
It's dry well.
Oh, okay. My mistake.
That's okay.
Okay. Let me see. How do I get back to that? Okay, that's good. So, any outdoor lighting? That's a question. We usually we show a lighting, what lighting would be used and make sure it meets the lighting standards for dark sky.
Right.
Are you intending to add lighting?
I mean, maybe what I do on my property now, which is like a solar power path lighting, which is like I think a low LED kind of like ground lighting. There would probably be a light on the south facing wall by the door, which would be downward facing like a typical entry light. Other than that, there wouldn't be any.
Okay. I think we need to have that as part of the file and have the planning department review. Normally you submit the location, and then there's specs for the light. Marco knows all about that, but I think that should probably be included in the final plan that we're going to look at approving.
Could that be part of the building plan? I feel like could that be part of the building department plan?
Usually it's part of the site plan that we approve the lighting plan.
I would have added this any time along this.
Okay. And then let's see if there's anything else that you said. I think you said you wanted to have. You're not going to have any parking places on this lot.
There would be in the driveway 2 parking spots within the driveway. To be honest, granted that we're going through this process because it adjoins my house. 99% of the time will be entry from my property. So I'm not certainly going to leave Harborview Drive to drive around 4 blocks to then enter Lafayette Place. And me being the sole person in this studio and not visitors, I don't necessarily feel that I need much parking.
Okay.
So I don't propose substantial parking other than what would park in the driveway, 2 cars at the most.
All right. Well, I would say normally we would want to see if you're going to park in anyway, I would say that normally on a final site plan, we would see the lighting. We would see where you intend to park on the lot. You've got the dry well. That's great. The cistern, I'm assuming, is on the roof of the.
It would probably be internal. So
internal.
Yeah.
Okay. And heat. What do you think in terms of heat or AC or any of those type of?
Ideally, it would be a closed system radiant floor. I would think. What I would like.
So no outdoor units for AC or heat.
No split system. I mean, I'd rather not. I financially, we'll see where I end, but ideally, we would have radiant heat.
Because that again, we would want to see in terms of visibility and also noise. If you're planning on putting any especially any units outside that are going to generate noise, and also the question of fuel. If you're what do you have your thoughts on what kind of
propane?
Propane. Are you going to put a propane tank, above ground tank?
Yes.
See, I think we should try to add the lighting, the propane tank, and if you want a parking space, I think we should have that on the drawing that we finally consider. Now, just let me go on. We'll see what the rest of the board thinks. But the other question is, normally or frequently, if we do site plans, there's usually an architectural review board approval or review. And the way this has been set up in the code, there is no ARB as far as I can tell. Marco or Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but.
No, that's correct. Architectural review board approval is not required for either the artist studio aspect or the site plan aspect.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
This is not a site plan, just to be clear.
I felt like this was a site plan.
Artist studio is a separate, it's a separate thing.
Well, it's listed in the agenda as a site plan.
No.
It's kind of it's kind of a unique thing, these artist studios. We bring site plan approval qualifications to the request.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize. I just
it's a good point, Ian.
It's a separate section of code that the town board used to deal with, and the requirements are not the same as site plan.
But the analysis runs along somewhat similar lines.
I'm just not sure the code says that. But anyway, I will defer to planning board and the attorney.
Well, I think that's what I think we're being asked to do by the town board. We're being asked to look at these and decide whether it's an appropriate use and whether it fits and how it looks. And
maybe we should just as counsel, to make sure, because I don't want us to get, for one thing, I don't want the applicant to be, going through hoops that the code doesn't intend it to go through. And, I mean, I should say it's kind of my observation that the artist studio and the site plan applications, I guess the proper way to put it is that they have a lot of similarities. But if it's not a strictly speaking site plan approval process, then maybe we should follow whatever guidance council can provide, so that we're not going outside of our purview.
So normally when we, at least the artist studios I've seen, almost all on the lot with the home and the principal use. So this is a somewhat unique situation where we have no principal use and we have a studio building on a lot with no principal use. So to me, it makes sense for everybody, including Nick, for us to be clear about where everything's going. And the neighbors have raised this in the public hearing comments. I think whatever we approve, we're the only review body here. So no one else is going to look at this.
May I ask a question? Yeah. I know that in the code, why we kind of going down this is because in the code, they allow you a accessory structure if you're adjoining lots. And when you say somebody does, this must have happened before because this is part of the code. And most of the time I understand that it wouldn't be an artist studio and that's a special permit. But I guess it may be a pool house or a garage. And if it were to be another accessory structure that wasn't so special as artist studio, do they go through those?
Well, Nick, it's usually not on a separate lot.
Can I just?
Bob, Mr. Catalano, did you want to say something?
I just want this is like any other. This is as if it's the same lot. I mean, under the code, whether it's an art studio or any other accessory building that's treated as, if they're owned adjacently by the same person, it's treated as one lot. So you can have a principal structure on one lot and the accessory on the other. It's all residential. It's as if it's one residential lot just because this is an art studio really just makes no difference at all in terms of the code.
But Mark, what
Let
happens?
me, Randy, let's hear from our own counsel on this, because,
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I would like to look into this a little bit further, but I agree with the last speaker. It's my understanding that the fact that it's on a separate lot really should not make much of a difference, even though it seems like it should, because, they're adjoining, it goes back to the whole Jerry Seinfeld law. It is allowed. So I would like to look at the covenants once again, just to make sure that everything is protected that we've been discussing about. And of course, Randy, you can ask for some things added to the site plan, or as a condition, maybe we could try to do something with the covenants as far as, making sure it's like the proper lighting and that sort of thing. But before I say anything definite on, I would like to just review that one more time and then let you know.
Okay.
But my understanding is that even though this is odd, it's not your typical artist studio because it is on a different lot, I really don't think it makes that much of a difference as far as the code is concerned.
Okay. Well, I'll finish up, but my sense of it is that we've been given this responsibility by the town board, and we have to balance the interests of the neighbors and the applicant. And one of the ways that we can do that is to try to be clear about what it's going to be when it's all done. The other thing that strikes me again as having a 1,000 square foot corrugated metal, black, I believe, Nick, is it a black corrugated metal building?
I believe to maybe make it less apparent to others, to blend in a little bit better.
So we're talking about approving a 1,000 square foot corrugated steel building with no windows on two sides and
neighboring sides.
On the neighboring sides.
For their benefit.
And my question is to the, to the board, do we need to look any further at color and materials, or we're just gonna go with what's proposed here? So I'm basically, Marco raised the question about whether or not moving the studio further south. I don't think the applicant wants to do that. My impression is that you're leaving enough room for a house there in case you ever want to build a house.
I mean, in all fairness, you guys, I made some mistakes. I totally understand that, and it's drawn this whole thing out, and I appreciate everybody's input and stuff. But we've surveyed this plot like 4 or 5 times. It's quite a bit of money each time. Initially, we had the studio proposed, I guess, in the southwest corner. Then you guys suggested that we move it to that corner. Then I had it at 18 feet. Randy, I believe you suggested we moved it 30 feet. Like, I'm willing to do whatever you guys want. I want the neighbors to be happy. I don't want to impact the neighborhood in a bad way. So I'm willing to do all this. And I just feel as though that we've done these steps, and then every time we have this, then we're asked for more. Whereas if I would, I understand it. It's a rolling thing, and we're getting through it. But
no, I understand. I don't. We'll hear from the rest of the board, but I don't feel strongly about relocating it. You already did the 30-foot separation, and you're planting in there, so I don't feel like there's a good reason for us to relocate it again. But that's all I have to say.
Okay. Do any other board members have anything they wish to add before we move on to the issues as presented by the planning department for us?
I do, Sam.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand this is new territory for us. And I understand that we do site plans, and all the things that Randy talked about are normally the things we look at. But the code lays out the 7 things that are required for an application before us for an artist studio. This is a residential type situation, which is why it didn't used to be before the planning board. The town board was never looking at these things. So I do think it's a little bit onerous to bring new things up at this stage of the game. I think that we've held a public hearing. We deemed the application complete before the public hearing without a lighting plan, without parking, without a lot of these things. Now, of course, the point of a public hearing is to hear from the public and make sure those comments are addressed, and that's important. And along those lines, I think it's important that as a condition of approval, we need to make sure that nothing gets washed down that sink and our groundwater is protected. I think there was also some good points about outdoor storage that we might want to address. But I do think the applicant has a good point that, you know, we've gone through this a lot of times. And at this stage of the game, if we just decide that it should look differently, I'm not sure that that's a fair ask. I'm not saying that this is good code or the way I think the code should be work with respect to artist studios, but it's the way that it is, and it's not a site plan. They're going to have to get a building permit for this stuff, which I think is the place where they'll make sure that everything is compliant. So I don't want to overstep here. I understand why it's confusing because it's new, but I do think we have to stay within the bounds of the code. And frankly, I think on the agenda this shouldn't be in the site plan review section. It should be another. And so that's part of the confusion here. So I think with a couple of things addressed, namely the groundwater and what goes down that sink, making sure that's in the conditions of approval, and perhaps outdoor storage, I think this is ready for approval. I don't think we need to have another public hearing on the site plan part of this application. Was a separate application, specifically with respect to clearing. The applicant has acknowledged his mistakes. It was a mistake. You had to go through a long process because of it. We deemed that the revegetation plan was okay. I don't think it, I think honestly, having a public hearing on that is onerous because frankly, I think that the comments the public wants to make is about the artist studio and we've heard them. I think they have to be addressed, but otherwise, we're ready to go forward.
And do any other members have anything they wish to add on this application?
Yeah, I do, Sam. I do.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I agree with elements of what both Ian and Randy said. I do think that, we've heard from the public. We do have to take the public's comments seriously, right? I mean, one of the things that, our mission as a planning board is to really protect the quiet enjoyment of residential neighborhoods, right? I do think that very unfortunately, as we've talked about many, many times, we've been together a long time, Nick and Mark, talking about this project, there were some mistakes made and unfortunately, the clearing before you had permission, and the fact that this is this unique situation where it's a vacant lot that's having an accessory structure built on it, in accordance with this artist studio thing, which is new, to all of us, kind of raises this idea to the neighbors of, oh my God, there's a commercial building going on that lot. There's a PR problem here, right? And we can't ignore that. We cannot ignore that. I think that you've done a lot. I think the groundwater thing is really important. You've made some commitments around that. I think that is really great. You've moved the building southward 12 feet. I think that's enough and that's important. But, I just want to say that I think that I'm surprised. I actually assumed the ARB would be involved here, but now that I think about it, no, they're not. I think to the extent that this can look like 1,000 square foot house on this essentially residential lot, would kind of go a long way to making your neighbors a lot happier and make you a better neighbor to them. I don't know if you've spoken to any of your neighbors, but, I think it would not be a friendly gesture, let's say, to put a very industrial looking building here, even if, it is something that is sort of permissible under the current regulations. And I don't want to get beyond our jurisdiction here. Ian's point is a good one about that, but I'm just saying, be a good neighbor here. Be a good neighbor. You got off on the wrong foot with the neighbors. See what you can do to mend those fences.
May I say a word?
Go ahead.
Yes, I totally agree. I think a lot of the neighbors, and it's kind of hard for me to take this position because I felt so guilty and I felt terrible about clearing the lot so early. And I can totally understand where the neighbors are coming from, that now this guy comes in, they don't know who I am. They don't even know that I abut this piece of property and that I'm right around the corner. And the fact that they had to look at a deforested zone for 2 years because of a big mistake that I made, I really do sincerely feel terrible about that. I won't even put my foot on the property because I feel so bad about it. I haven't put, it's something that's really weighed on my conscience. I've spoken to the 3 neighbors that do abut my property, and they have written in and they do approve with what I'm doing. I've been very transparent with them. I didn't want to step out. I've never done this before. I don't feel like it was really appropriate to knock on doors and kind of say like, hey, I'm Nick Cohen. Not at this stage. I didn't feel good about that. I just didn't know if that was like in conflict. I don't know. But as far as me, basically having that property, it's going to get developed in a very tasteful way. I believe that I have an eye of good taste. I know people took pictures of the studio and kind of misrepresented. That's not my side. That's not who I am. And, I proposed a lot of plantings for screening of the neighbors. I want to make it a good part of the community. I have no intention. There is a side of it that's practical. I only have such a budget. I only have so many means to work on this project. And in respect to people build houses often that are not my really taste. I don't really get a say in that. If they want to put up a pool house or a pool or do many things on my neighbors that have added on additions, I'm not really mad at them for doing it, but it's not really what I would prefer to have there. And I don't really hold it against them. I think that we're all trying to kind of like survive and, live in a right direction. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not out there to anyways, you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I just one final thing and I'll stop talking.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that, some of the other concerns about traffic and, commercial activity happening and those sorts of things are taken care of by code, right? You're not allowed to have commercial sales. All those things are not going to wind up happening. I'm just saying, and, I trust you're an artist. I'm sure you have good taste. Just, really be cognizant of that and really do your best to sort of make this thing fit in and look modest and, not obtrusive and not, sort of fulfill their greatest fears of what this thing will be in their neighborhood. That's all.
Okay. Do any other board members have any comments they wish to add on this before we move on to the questions? If there aren't, then the planning department asks that the applicant should clarify if any work's going to be stored outdoors. I think we have an answer on that, which is no. Planning board should consider if any additional details regarding the studio's use should be submitted. Do any of the board members think that we need that?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. All right, the planning board should discuss whether the size and location of the studio is compatible with the residential neighborhood. I think that's been pretty much the topic of discussion tonight. And then the key question is, well, there's two. Does the planning board wish to hold a public hearing for the site plan aspect of the artist studio approval? And following which is the application ready for approval. I'm going to go around the table on this, and I'll start with you, Ed, on whether we should have a public hearing on this. I know we've been down this road before, but I agree with the planning department's assessment that it's something that, given what's been going on, it's appropriate to look at that issue one more time. So, Ed, if you would start us off.
I hate to say this because I'm not sure the public is going to understand what this hearing is for and how it's different from what's already been done. What?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with your thought.
That's my one. In many ways, I actually think the answer should be yes, but I'm going to say no.
Okay, very good. Lou.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence with this as well. I think Nick has gone a long way to meet a lot of the requirements that we've set forth. I think the application has gone through the ringer, and I think we're all better for it. I think a lot of the concerns of the neighbors are understandable, but I think they've been met and satisfied by Nick. At least I'm satisfied. But on the public hearing, there's been so much response and reaction. I'd hate to put a stopgap on that. So I'm going to vote yes to the public hearing.
Okay. Ian?
I think no to a public hearing. This is a wrap-up memo after having a public hearing on the artist studio. So if we did have a public hearing on the site plan, it has to do with the revegetation plan. I have no idea what could come of that or what would change. They're compliant now with clearing after that site plan, assuming it's approved. So I think the issues with this project are the artist studio itself. A public hearing was held. This meeting right now, this wrap-up meeting is, a result of that public hearing. So we're not cutting the public out. We had a public hearing. I think it's not necessary for the second application that has nothing to do with the artist studio itself requires a public hearing.
Thanks. Randy?
I'm not sure I understood that, but if you use Ian's literal interpretation of the code, there's no requirement for a public hearing. And this isn't site plan.
Well, Randy, just to clarify what I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, we had a public hearing on the artist studio.
Only because it was cleared without permission.
No. There was a public hearing on this already.
No, but there's no site plan yet.
I know there is. May I clarify?
Please, Eric, go ahead.
Just because we've been down this road a number of times, and particularly with Thomas Crouch, the previous council. This is the wrap-up memo. You had a public hearing on the artist studio application. The issues related to the fact that an artist studio is going on this property, whether it be setbacks, the size of the artist studio, the artist medium, noise, things like that, should be addressed as part of this discussion that came after the public hearing for the artist studio. I do apologize that this was put under site plan on the physical agenda. That was a mistake. It should be under the other category. But this is the wrap up after the hearing for the artist studio application. There also now has to be a denial or approval of a site plan, but that was triggered by the over clearing of the property and nothing else. So anything related to, location of the artist studio, size, et cetera, all of the issues of the artist studio should be addressed now, either through an approval with maybe conditions, or denial, if the board wants to go that route. But when this does come back to you, it will come back for the site plan, but that is solely due to the fact that the property was over cleared, and it would really be a consideration of whether or not the revegetation and the remediation that the applicants are proposing to rectify that problem is sufficient. So you can choose to have a second public hearing on that matter, but it would be confined to the issue that triggered the site plan, which is the overclearing.
And specifically, that site plan is only about revegetation.
That's correct. As I read the code and understand it, although, this is complicated, and Nancy, your counsel, is new to this, so we could discuss it, and I'm sure she would want some time to go over it. But I believe I'm repeating exactly what Thomas Crouch and myself had said previously.
Yeah, I mean, what Eric, you're saying definitely makes sense on this. It's two totally separate issues. And it was just unfortunate it was put under site plan, which just confused it a little bit, but it's not. It's we have an artist studio and then we have a revegetation site plan, and they're two different things. And we already had the public hearing for the artist studio.
Exactly.
That's done.
Well, we're only talking about a public hearing on revegetation issues.
That's right.
I got to say that I think the code needs work because the code does not say that we have to have a public hearing on an artist studio. And I was told previously when we discussed the hearing on the revegetation not to bring up issues about the layout. So I think there's confusion here, and I think it's partly because the code could use some reworking.
I agree. I have a simple remedy, which would be to require that artist studios get site plan approval. But I floated that idea around. I'll work on it some more. But as it stands right now for this application, that is not how the code directs you to treat this.
Well, my comments are informed by that conversation that I had with Eric on that point. So, Randy, given the restrictions,
I don't think we have any authority to require a public hearing on the site plan. Okay. It's not a site plan.
Okay. Sharon?
No, I think Ian is right. This was the application that the neighbors were referring to in terms of the artist studio, not revegetation plan. So no public hearing.
Michael?
I agree with that. The initial public hearing seems to have been sufficient or answer a lot of questions, or so I say no to a second hearing. I just have one question though that has been gnawing at me, and I'm just going to ask it of Nick, which is, he says that the doors will be closed of his studio, but he also says there'll be no air conditioning. So I'm really, how are you going to manage that in the summer when we get like a 98-degree day, keeping the doors closed if you're working or not working in the studio? I don't know, but I'm just
totally. I can answer that now if you'd like. It was actually that the doors would not be open after, I think, 6 o'clock. Whatever the allowed time at a decibel would not be opened past that time. So the doors may be open during the daytime. Right?
Okay. And what kind of art do you produce?
Me, sculpture.
Like metal, stone, like
metal and wood, and mixed media, but metal and wood primarily.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to ask if any of the board members, now that we've had this clarification from council during the course of this vote, does anybody want to change their votes regarding the public hearing? If not, I'm also going to vote against the public hearing on the basis of what we've heard tonight. So with that, do we agree the application is ready for approval? Folks?
Yes.
Well, I still would like to have the lighting meet the town code. I think we're just asking for trouble if we have lights at the neighbors. So I'd like to have that a condition of approval. At least the lighting, and if there's and the propane tank be shown.
May I ask, when I go to say I get approved, I'm going to have to go to the building department to get a building permit for this, right? And at that point, they're going to ask me what my lighting is and what kind of heat I'm using, and make sure that I meet the R values and everything that goes into building permits, right? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, as far as they're not gonna locate the propane tank, but I don't know if Eric, if you feel that if the building department will make it be lighting that conforms, then we don't need to look at it. I don't know that. Normally we do, when we do a site plan, we have a lighting plan.
I know that my propane tanks that I have at my house now have to be on a 10-foot setback. I mean, I know that there's certain things. To be honest, I don't want to put my propane tanks right in somebody's face, and I'm covering with greenage that whole corner, and I'd probably put it on the side of the building, which has plenty of screening. I'm all about screening. I don't want my neighbors to feel like I don't also want to feel like my neighbors are right next to me. So but if you would like to see it, I'm happy.
Let me, can I speak to both of those? And individually. So as far as utilities, whether they be, an air conditioning unit or a propane tank or something like that, again, whatever the board wants to see on the plan, certainly that's your prerogative. But I think it might be a moot point, and Nick was just, I think, getting into it, but they're proposing extensive screening on the two sides of the studio that, where if you did locate an AC unit or a tank, might impact the neighbors. So, you usually ask for the utilities to be shown, particularly, for example, like let's say a retail building in downtown Montauk, so that you can make sure that they're not out in the open, visible. You ask to see them so that you can consider appropriate screening, whether it be fencing or vegetation. In this case, they're already proposing, to completely screen out the, I guess you'd call that the west and the north side of the artist studio, and then the other side is facing their property. So certainly you could ask for it, but they're already, you would want to see that on the plan so that you could consider appropriate screening, but they're already proposing to screen those areas. So that might be a moot point. As far as the lighting goes, you're right. And it may be, it would be very easy to for the applicant to just to pick out a light fixture. I would assume that there's probably only really going to be one on this building, in the entrance, and, provide manufacturer's cut sheets. They could, during the course of this meeting, go online, pick out a light fixture and print out the cut sheets. So that's very easy. But, the planning department, when we do inspections, when it does come time to see whether or not a certificate of occupancy is going to be granted, when we do the inspections, we look at the lighting on the site. And regardless of whatever has occurred previously, all lighting in the town is required to be compliant with the town's lighting code. So that's something we would look for to begin with, at the time of a CO inspection. But it is a simple enough thing to submit a manufacturer's cut sheet for a light that would be over the entranceway. And then I believe Nick said he might be proposing some pathway lights. You could make that a condition of approval that information is submitted and reviewed by the planning department. You could also, this wouldn't be approved until the next meeting, which is 2 weeks away. In the meantime, Nick can speak with Marco and myself, and we could easily help him out to submit that information ahead of time. Or you could just wait and we will make sure that all lighting is compliant upon the CO inspection, however you want to do it. But that is a very minor thing.
Very good. Okay, we're going to wrap on this, and we'll see you next time. And Nancy can respond to the legal issues that are outstanding and hopefully come to a conclusion on this. Thanks again. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you, Mr. Catalano. Okay, we've got the subdivision initial evaluation of 403 Springs Fireplace Road sub-waiver. And for my little agenda here, this is Marco is the planning department representative on this. Lou, you've got the board covering it for the board. And Mr. Tarbett, is this yours? It's yours?
Sorry, I think my volume was turned off. Yes, it is. Hi.
Very good. Okay, just want to make sure that we have a full house here. So, all right, go right ahead, Mark.
Okay. Just give me 1 second, please. I'll just show you the aerial that has the parcel. This was an application to subdivide the parcel into two individual lots. The original parcel is 147,000 square feet, roughly or so. And that's divided into lot one, consisted of about 49,000 square feet, excluding the right-of-way. and lot 2, which consists of about 68,000 square feet, also excluding the right-of-way. The property is zoned A residence, which must maintain 40,000 square feet, a minimum 40,000 square feet. It is located off of Springs Fireplace Road in Springs. It's within the Suffolk County Pine Barrens region, and it's currently improved with a pre-existing one-story single-family residence and pool. The property is adjacent to parcels to the east, south, and west, also zoned A residence, and to the north, B residence. The uncleared areas are primarily characteristic of South Fork Pine Barrens, mostly of mixed oaks, pitch pine, and white pine. The understory is primarily low bush, blueberry, and bayberry. The project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. The Planning Department recommends that the Planning Board declare lead agency. I will put on the site plan. I'm sorry, not the site plan, the sub waiver, which is slightly zoomed in. So you can see the original parcel. It is a flag lot that is mostly square in shape and has not been previously subdivided. The parcel's lot area, excluding the access right away, is currently 118,000 square feet roughly, which does provide sufficient yield for 2 parcels. There are a total of 3 lots, including the subject project, which currently utilize what appears to be a common dirt driveway from Springs Fireplace Road. I will just zoom in on this key map here that kind of shows that. So there is this parcel here, one lot here, and another lot here that take access from Springs Fireplace Road. I believe this lot here would have been a 3rd lot, but it could take access from Springs Fireplace Road on this side, but I think at the moment it takes it from this northern side here. Either way, they all could potentially use the common dirt driveway. The adjacent parcels to the east and west of the subject property, which east and west, are similarly sized and shaped lots, which most likely have sufficient yield for 2 A resident sized lots as well. The planning board should be aware that if a precedent is set to subdivide these particular lots, it could potentially result in a total of 6 lots, in which the existing dirt road will be insufficient in servicing. Any future adjacent subdivisions will need consideration as to how the lots will be properly accessed utilizing a common driveway easement. It is unclear at the time of review if there is any existing grant of common driveway easement. In any case, the applicant should provide information regarding if such easement is, if it exists or is proposed. The town code states that the maximum number of lots that a common driveway can serve is 4 lots. Any access way that serves more than 4 lots will have to be considered a street and must meet the town's appropriate design criteria. I have attached the standards of those to this memo as well. Although the application would only increase the number of lots to the maximum allowed for a common driveway, the planning board should consider potential future subdivisions of the neighboring lots. The planning department notes that the existing common driveway is questionable if it meets the town code standards for servicing the 3 lots or the potential 4 lots. It is most likely the common driveway does not meet the current standards in the town code, as photo aerials indicate its existence prior to zoning adopted in 1984. A subdivision in this area will increase the overall density and may set a precedent for subdividing the neighboring lots in the future. Although the proposed lots may meet the town code in regards to lot area, other subdivision design criteria such as lot shape and existing access ways should be considered by the planning board. As noted earlier, the existing lot is mostly square in shape and is improved with a pre-existing house, a pool, and a shed. The applicant is proposing to divide this parcel to 2 lots, where lot 1 is to contain all the existing improvements, and lot 2 is to be a L shape and comprises surrounding lot 1 and comprising mostly of existing vegetated areas. The proposed lot shape of lot 2 is noted to be an uncommon design when compared with nearby parcels. Under the town code, the design standards, the lot shall be rectangular in shape and somewhat deeper than they are wide. Such an L shape is roughly equal parts in length and depth, is at odds with the surrounding parcels, which are mostly rectangular or square. It appears that the lot has been designed to retain a majority of the existing structures within Lot 1 and to meet the minimum setback requirements. The existing shed and pool equipment must be removed, otherwise it would be within the newly proposed setbacks. The planning department recommends the applicant propose lots that are more conforming to the town code. A more conforming design may require the relocation of existing structures, such as the pool, which is located roughly in the middle of the lot. The applicant should also provide a survey of existing conditions as part of the board's subdivision requirements. It's noted that the subdivision, if it were to be approved, additional revegetation will be required for areas of Lot 1. The clearing calculations on the survey have indicated that the existing limits of clearing will be 25,824 square feet, which is roughly 3,000 more than the permitted amount of roughly 22,000. I believe the calculations are listed down here.
I think they're up top.
Yeah, you had a corner. You had that other map.
They're on the top of that survey, on the top right corner.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're looking for. No. There you go.
Well, that should be able to see for the most part. So, as proposed, the application will require variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals as Lot 1 would be considered overcleared. The planning board may wish to discuss aspects such as the subdivision's design and common driveway before considering comments to be sent to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Although the parcel is not part of any other town overlay districts, such as water recharge overlay or harbor protection overlay, additional clearing will be required in order to construct any newly proposed structures on that Lot 2, which does comprise of mature trees and understory that are historically uncleared. The area is located within the Suffolk County Pine Barrens, and the application will be referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission. The planning board may wish to discuss the possibility of a proposed building envelope to limit the amount of clearing to be conducted. The applicant will need to make an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the overclearing of Lot 1, or alternatively provide a revegetation plan. The site will need to either utilize private wells for each lot or extend public water nearly half a mile up from Springs Fireplace Road. It is assumed that the former is proposed. Additionally, all of the neighboring properties contain both private wells and individual sanitary systems, which require minimum setbacks from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Although that appears there's ample room to place wells and sanitary systems on each of the lots, the location of the site's existing well and sanitary systems, as well as the neighboring ones, should be illustrated on the map to verify that setbacks are met. There's no comments received from the Office of Fire Prevention at the time of review. It is noted that given the pre-existing formation of the common driveway, it does not contain an emergency turnaround. An increase of density would increase the level of activity on an access way that is likely non-conforming to town code. Currently, the project title of the survey does not indicate it's a subwaiver. It's a simple matter of renaming it to map of 304 Springs Fireplace Road subwaiver. In conclusion, the application is incomplete given the aforementioned issues discussed above. The planning board should discuss the increase in density in the area, design of the common driveway, and the proposed clearing.
Thanks very much, Marco. Mr. Tarbett.
Good evening. So on an otherwise straightforward sub-waiver, the elephant in the room is the irregularly shaped lot. I understand the board may not like that shape, and we are willing to go back and make rectangular lots. I just wanted to throw out our thought process and see if there was any traction with that thought process. The proposed new lot is 1.6 acres in a 1 acre zone. So it would be a larger lot than required by zoning. The rectangular part that we proposed a house and a pool in to show that you could easily fit 4,000 square foot house and pool on is actually over 1 acre. So to the extent that you're trying to create regularly shaped lots, there is a 1 acre lot proposed in a rectangular shape in the back. For the lack of a better word, the flag portion, we would be willing to covenant that there be no building in that area. So in a sense, create a building envelope of 1 acre on a 1.6 acre lot. And I hope you're following what I'm trying to say. I'm hopefully doing a good enough job explaining it. But that was our thought process, was that, and the reason behind it, of course, is just that the existing property has already been developed in a way that, so the benefit to the applicant is just that if we do traditional regularly shaped lots, he would have to like tear out his pool, which is relatively recently constructed, and it would disrupt the way he's using and living on his property. There's no real downside to an irregularly shaped lot in this particular case, because again, we easily can show that we meet all setbacks and can build on the property or can subdivide the property without the need for any variances. So I think sometimes when you see irregularly shaped lots, that was the intent, was to either show frontage or try to work around design constraints. In this case, it's a self-created hardship in the sense that we developed our property before we considered subdividing it. But unless there's any real downside, which I can't think of any downside, I was hoping that the carrot would be that, again, we would essentially sterilize a half acre of property, which would be the rectangle facing up, and then develop the back rectangle. So we would, in essence, be just creating one 1 acre lot. That is probably the elephant in the room, because if the board still hates the idea, we understand that, we understand that, and we'll just go back to the drawing board and redraft the lines. And maybe it's not really worth going into the other issues at this point. But if there's some traction to that, then I'd be happy to hear your comments.
Okay. All right, thank you. I guess Lou, go right ahead.
Yeah, interesting. My first comment was going to be on, the shape of the lot, obviously, which I'm against. I didn't think that was a good idea, but having heard the applicant's carrot, as he put it, where he would submit to having a covenant that would prevent any development of that part of the lot, that I guess it would be a flag-shaped lot. Unless somebody else can think of something that maybe I'm missing, at first glance, it seems like a decent idea to me, because you're preventing any development of that large section of the lot. So if you think of that as undeveloped, you really do have a rectangular lot in lot 2. So I don't know. I'm just, like I said, maybe there's something that I'm missing, and I'd love to hear everybody else's comments and insights. But at first blush, I'm kind of swayed by the applicant's argument about that. There are a couple of other issues with this application that I wanted to mention. One is this driveway. I think it is a problem that, if this lot gets subdivided into 2 lots, there's a strong possibility that the other 2 lots will eventually do the same, which thereby would create the need for a street. And I'm not sure if that would would be possible. Now, I don't know if we can, I don't know if it's the right thing to do to take something that may happen in the future and use it as a cudgel to prevent the subdivision of this lot. So that's another point that I'd like to hear everybody
I'm happy
else.
to address that point if you'd like.
Sure. Go ahead.
And I didn't have a chance to speak to Marco about it, and I'm happy to do it offline and come back to you, and maybe Eric and maybe Nancy. But when I look at this, is a good graphic on the screen now. There is, each of these lots has its own legal access to either, I guess we're talking about the ones in blue, to Springs Fireplace Road. So obviously, as Marco said, the property directly abutting Springs Fireplace Road has a couple hundred feet of frontage. The one behind it, between it and the subject property, also has a legal flag. Now, and I can submit this for the board's file, but our property has a 1960s easement on it, which just says that parties will have the right to transverse over it. So I don't necessarily know which properties have that right, but it does say that. So the reason why the survey is showing a scenic easement is because of the deed, which says, again, that people have the right to transverse over it. But there are legal accesses for the other two properties, and I don't know if that was taken into consideration.
But even that access from Fireplace Road, assuming that these other two properties get subdivided, you would still, even if you maintain the access to that first lot, and assuming that it gets subdivided, so the lot closest to Fireplace Road would have an access from Fireplace Road, but you would still have 5 lots, which is over the 4-lot maximum, that would require a street, wouldn't you?
Well, I think the middle lot, if you look at the shared screen, that middle lot has a flag to Fireplace Road. So if that lot were to come in for a subdivision, you could just simply require that they use their flag and not our flag.
Yeah, but the point is you'd have 5 lots coming off of one flag lot, which you can't do.
No, I don't. I think. Am I missing something?
You look at it, there's two separate lots.
Yeah, he's saying there's 2. Yeah, and that would be weird because then you'd have 4 access points from Fireplace Road pretty close to each other.
Well, they do have an easement over our flag, so I think in that case you could require that they take access at the end. Like, in other words, they would have to take access at the end, maybe a 20-foot wide strip at the end. So they could come down their property on their own flag and then enter on the same highway cut.
Yeah.
John, do you know how were these lots created? By a sub-waiver?
So no, Eric and I looked into that, and we were both surprised. There is no, and Eric, correct? Is Eric still here?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, Eric and I initially, when I first picked this application up, we were surprised there is no, and nothing else has changed. I don't believe there's any town file on it. So my best guess is they were just deeded out as described properties.
Yeah, John and I talked about it a bunch of times, I think over the phone and through some emails. And I looked at deed records with our assessors. I looked through subdivisions that we have scanned and on file. I can't find any record of this property previously being subdivided, which is very unusual, especially when, and I think John and I were both surprised on that.
Yeah.
And when it's very unusual, especially because if you look at the configuration of the lots with these flag strips, I mean, that's something that you usually see on a property that had a subdivision. We have a lot of, I'm sorry.
This is a typical layout for a large lot subdivision that would have large lot easements on it. And an agreement not to subdivide further.
And we looked, and I mean, that might exist, but I couldn't find it. And I'm sure John looked as well.
Interestingly enough, if you go towards 3 Mile Harbor, it's almost a mirror subdivision.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to raise that up because I could just see it happening on one side and then on the other.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've got, these 6 lots across between 3 Mile Harbor and Springs Fireplace. Before long, there'll be 12.
I think maybe a title company might be able to figure out how they were created. And
No, I have a title report. There's nothing in it.
Yeah. I mean, this is clearly not an old subdivision, and it looks like it was set up to have common driveways and large lots. I mean, I really think we got to do some more research into how these lots were created and what restrictions were in those approvals.
Well, I'm all ears. I tried my best and I gave up and called Eric, and I don't think he found anything either. We were also, I think Eric and I were both shocked that it didn't get caught in an upzoning, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
How dare they miss a lot?
What one lot? 5, 6. You got a whole bunch.
Although even if they were to be subdivided, in this case, there'd be 1.5 acre lots. They're not small lots.
They're not. But look at what surrounds them.
Oh, they're half acre lots. Yeah.
Yeah, all around.
Now, we'll still be 3 times the size of surrounding lots. Yeah.
No, you still have. There are places in town where you have, large lots like this in the midst of, smaller lots. And I guess, there's no water recharge issues here, or things like that. But it does portend greater density. If this application goes through in an already fairly dense area. So that's my, yeah, thank you, Marco. And look at all those lots.
Yeah, it's possible that when they, if I want to shade it to the most benefit my client, it's possible that when they did the upzoning, they said, well, at 1.5 acres, even if these were to be subdivided, they would still be significantly sized lots. I mean,
shading it for your client. There we go.
It does make sense, though. So.
I don't know. If I'm in that area, I take some comfort in having the large lots that are adjacent. Let me go around the table and see if anyone else has any comments or questions regarding this. Ed, do you mind if I start with you on this?
I'm sorry, did you say me?
Yeah, if you have any questions about it, well, first of all, we should declare lead agency, I suppose, on this. Well, there should be a motion to do that. If Lou, if you want to make that motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we should be lead agent.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're declaring lead agency. Look, this is kind of, I'd like to get the board members, initial feelings on this. This is an initial evaluation. So if you,
did you want to start with me? So, yeah, so my feeling, listen, like everybody else, I hate to lose large lots like this, and increased density in this kind of a neighborhood, while, the neighborhoods on either side of it are actually pretty dense already. It would be a shame. However, it meets zoning. And actually, I feel like, there really is a solution to the access problem, right? They do have their own. Each of these has their own independent access to Springs Fireplace Road, so I don't really see where that's particularly an issue. And normally, I would really want to see rectangular lots too, but in this case, I actually see that. I'm not opposed to the idea of this L shape. I'm not, particularly if we can figure out how to conserve the part that fronts the driveway, that sort of portion, that rectangle, as unbuildable. I think it could be a win. That's all I got for now.
Okay, no, that's fine. Lou? Well, Lou, you covered this one. I'm sorry. Ian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the two main issues obviously are the lot shape and access. I mean, Ed said it that this meets zoning, so I think that there is at least a potential for a subdivision here. I was pretty adamantly opposed to this lot shape. I think, as the applicant suspected, we all would be. But geez, I'm a little swayed by that argument, and that it's really a restriction. But that said, I would definitely want the planning department to weigh in on that. I don't mean to put them on the spot right now, but I may be missing something that we're not covering. Otherwise, I'm at least open to the idea of allowing it. Access is the other important issue. I'm sure these driveways, I'm sure the length to that lot would be more than 751 feet, which would mean you would need a 25-foot right-of-way, 22-foot cleared area, and an 18-foot improved roadway with a turnaround. I don't know how wide that flag is, but I think you'd have to show that you could have a common driveway. And I think we would anticipate, as the applicant alluded to, that this would also have to accommodate the lot, just one lot close to the Springs fireplace in case that were ever subdivided. We got to think at least that far ahead. So you probably could do that, but it's certainly not shown here. And I just want to make sure that's a point that the applicant knows they'll have to take care of. So I'm more open to the project than I thought I was coming into it.
I'm just thinking it's a tasty carrot.
I should raise my rate, I think.
We have well, I'm not going to comment on that. Randy, go ahead.
As I said, I really think this is the typical layout that would have large lot easements, and I think we need to do some more research. I don't think this was created before zoning, or so. I'll do some research on my own, or maybe Nancy could look into it. But this layout is just so typical. When people would have a large piece of property like that, they didn't want to have to pay for a road. They'd do a minor subdivision, put in the flag strips, and agree that they were never going to subdivide those lots. That was a standard format. And I think that's what this is. And so I don't see any point for me, everyone else can go ahead and look at the issues, but I want to be satisfied that this isn't already prohibited from being subdivided.
Okay, Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, I think Randy makes a point. If there's got to be paperwork somewhere, you'd think, right? About the subdivision, just seeing what's around it. The fact that these are these large lots does seem like they're newer than the others in this neighborhood. And, the same like everybody else, this wraparound seemed like they're just trying to get another lot out of this. And I was against it, but the applicant makes a good point, and I'm open to this design at this point. But I think trying to further dig for the deed is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Michael?
I have no objection to the L shape. I have no problem with that. And I would like to see the language of the covenant, exactly how much space will be reserved. I'm very curious about that.
Okay. No, I'm going to agree with Randy, I think, on this one, that maybe we need the town attorney to go into the books and records and go see if there isn't a restriction. If there isn't a restriction, I am very wary about the impact of subdividing these lots. I'd like to make sure that I don't want to make sure, but once one is done, I think we'll find more coming down the road. The carrot is a tasty carrot, and I agree with Michael that we should have very strong restrictions on development in that parcel, that portion of the parcel. But I think we need to find out for sure whether there are any restrictions on subdivision of the existing parcels at all. So we declared lead agency, and should the applicant provide details regarding an existing grant of common driveway easements or details of an easement if one would be proposed? And I think we've pretty well got that. Should the applicant provide additional sanitary and water service details? I'm wondering if we shouldn't hold off on that until we get a little bit more. I'm assuming that the board is in agreement with the idea that we want to make sure that there are no restrictions on this.
I have no objection to taking the time to do that.
I appreciate that. All right, so why don't we then hold off on the remaining issues, because we may be there may be no issue, or there may be a whole bunch of issues. So let's find out what the records of Suffolk County say. Okay, is that all right, Mr. Target?
That works for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, very well.
Excuse me. So, John, can you forward me any kind of like title that issues you've already figured out, and also that 60s easement you had mentioned?
Yes. So yeah, I'll forward it to you, Nancy. I'll touch base with you tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. Any kind of work you get, that, especially with this title search. I know you said Eric and you were looking through things. And
Yep.
Okay. Very well. Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a long night. We've got one more matter on, which is the Greco UR map modification. Mr. Whalen, I see you're still here, and I see Nick Greco, the applicant, is here. And Will, you're the planner on this one, so take it away.
Okay, this is an application that was previously submitted requesting a modification of old file map 316 depicted on sheet A in one of the urban renewal studies, so as to abandon the 30-foot wide Bayview Avenue to the center line in favor of parcel 27. The UR map indicated that one half of Bayview Avenue in this area was to be open for a driveway to serve parcel 28. That portion of Bayview area was not required for access, as parcel 28 to the north was underwater and was below the mean high water line at the time the UR map was designed, and had recently been acquired by the town of East Hampton. The UR map did indicate that the other half of Bayview Avenue in front of parcel 27 should be opened or abandoned. Given the coastal erosion in the area, the subject parcel 27 fronts on the Peak Bay and is located in the flood zone and is partially underwater. The planning department noted that abandoning the right-of-way as requested would create a larger lot that would have the potential to allow for more development on a parcel subject to coastal erosion and flooding. A larger concern was that the portion of Bayview Avenue was utilized to provide beach access for the other lot owners in the map. The planning department did not recommend this proposal move forward on the grounds that the residents of Bayview Avenue utilize the portion of the road in order to access the beach on the Peak Bay, and additionally that its flood-prone location in flood zone AE10 in New York State /zone number 3 suggested that further development should not be encouraged in the area.
Thanks very much. I should make clear that the application, this is really an issue for the town board, the planning board reviews this with respect to planning issues and then passes on its comments to the town board. We have had in the past the practice has been to discuss the matter with the planning department, and the planning board issues comments. But it seems to me we had a few of these in the more recent history that even though it really is reliant upon the planning department and planning board's expertise in planning issues and in imparting that expertise, if you will, to the town board, that our opinion would benefit from the input of council and or the applicant himself. And so we welcome the opportunity to have the applicant and the council also comment at this time. So, Mr. Whalen.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. I don't think it's. I think it's fair to say you can't reliably make good decisions if you don't hear from the landowner on a particular application. So I know you discussed it back in July. I appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight. So background here, the house that's on the property was built by the owner's family back in 1979. It was actually Nick Recco's father. And the property at the time, if you have in front of you the urban renewal map, those urban renewal maps were approved by the town, adopted by the town in 1977. So the map and the shoreline that you see on that map was very similar to what it looked like when the house was built in 1979. The underlying map, which is the map of Hollymere, was filed as a subdivision in 1913. So if you look at the urban renewal map, there you go. There's the urban renewal map. There's the shoreline, and there's the outs. You're both the shoreline, the high water mark in 1977, and then at the far left you see the shoreline as it was when the map was filed in 1913. So erosion was fairly modest actually between 1913 and 1977, but not long after the applicant built the house, erosion began to accelerate. First of all, when the house was built, I want to point this out. When the house was built, the town had no coastal erosion setback requirements. Had they had coastal setback requirements similar to those today, the house would have greatly exceeded them. The house was built 180 feet from the inland edge of the beach in 1979, which was greater than any coastal setback that we have today. Even in 1984, the house was still about 170 feet from the beach. But by 2016, the deck on the waterfront side of the house was less than 10 feet from the beach escarpment. So in the latter part of the 20th century and then the early years of this century, beach erosion in this area was averaging about 5 feet per year, which is an extraordinary level. Honestly, one of the highest rates of coastal erosion I'm aware of in the town. So it's not like they didn't, plan ahead or built the house at a stupid location. They built the house in 1979 more than 180 feet from the beach. And by the time they had to put in these geocubes, which was, forget now, 2018 or 19, they were in immediate danger of losing the deck. And the house wasn't, as you can see, the house isn't far behind the waterfront deck. So the principal reason that we are before you, and the main reason to be able to abandon part of the road here, is to protect the house, is to prevent storm overwash that might wash down the road and outflank the house. And I think the same is true for the neighbor to the east. As far as you should know the applicant does have a proposal before the zoning board right now to move the house landward. Now, we're not going to take the existing house. The proposal is built to build a new house, not to move the 1979 structure. But we're looking to build a house of approximately the same size at the extreme southerly end of the lot. And then we will try to protect it with a rock revetment. And that's an application that should be heard before the zoning board, I hope, in the very near future. As for the proposal itself, what we requested here, the road, we basically followed the urban renewal map. If you look at the urban renewal map again, you'll show that the way it was designed in 1977, see if that comes up on the screen there, the driveway access was actually down the neighboring or the easterly lot's side of the road. That was a quirk of how the engineers who did those maps, let's see if we see it there. So at the far left, see the arrow. There was originally, the reason the road continued and the driveway continued on the urban renewal map, you can see the arrow going to the cul-de-sac, which is the large black dot, and the arrow was on the easterly side of the road, which is that adjoining urban renewal parcel 1. we're urban renewal parcel 27, and URP 28 is gone. URP 28 is under the water of Gardner's Bay. So there's no longer a need for road access because there's no lot beyond our house. Just to clarify, though, one of the things that was questioned, this was discussed before. Well, why did we propose to just abandon our side of the road and leave the easterly side of the road for the future access to a beach? We're willing to amend our application. What we'd be happy to do would be to propose to abandon the 10 feet of road nearest our lot, leave 5 feet of the road unabandoned, and then expect the neighbor on the other side to do the same. If that happens, then there'll be a 10-foot wide strip down the center where the road would not be abandoned. The reason for this is to provide beach access for residents of Bayview Avenue, or the map of Hollymere. First thing you need to understand, this is a private road, private subdivision. Bayview Avenue is not a town road. This is not a public beach access. The only people who have the right to use the road for beach access or for any access are residents of Bayview Avenue. Second thing, just to make this point, is the two lot owners on the shore own the beach. We know this because in 1911, the trustees gave a quitclaim deed to the original landowner going right down to the bay. So there's no question of trustee ownership or any public ownership of the beach. As far as the beach goes, if people in the subdivision get to the beach and they want to go left or right around, of course, we can't speak for a right turn, but in terms of traversing the beach in front of the Greco property, we don't have a problem with that for pedestrians. It's not appropriate to have vehicle access here. You can't go left and go west anywhere because immediately to the west of us is Napeague State Park. Beach vehicle access is not allowed. And beach vehicle access obviously endangers the safety of our lot and can cause additional erosion. So we're happy if this is maybe the way you would like us to go, to amend the urban renewal map application. So again, we would propose to abandon, the road is 30 feet wide, right? So we have claims to the westerly 15 feet of the road. We would propose to abandon 10 feet nearest to our lot, leaving 5 feet unabandoned. And then again, we would expect the neighbor on the east side, URP1, to do the same thing. And again, the purpose of this, it narrows the road access down to 10 feet, less chance that, because we can't do anything within the part of the road that's not abandoned. We can't put in a return on a revetment. We're not allowed to really do anything with that area. So to protect ourselves, we want to make that strip as narrow as possible. 10 feet is plenty for pedestrian access. If you go down to the end of the road right now, the only thing you have really at the end that continues is a beach path, is a pathway, a narrow pathway. That certainly fits within 10 feet. There's, again, no need for wider access. There's no need for 30 feet of access unless you're going to accommodate vehicles. And I think it's fair to say that it would not be good policy, it would not be good land use planning to allow vehicle access to the beach. So I want to make that clear. We're willing to amend our application accordingly. Last thing I just want to say, there were only, in the planning department memo, which dates back to March of last year, there were two reasons given why the planning department did not recommend the proposed modification. One was that we were picking up additional lot area. It would add to the size of our lot in a constrained area. The amount of lot area being picked up is de minimis, and it's not going to affect the application we have before the zoning board right now. We have a very constrained lot. We have wetlands to our west. We have the coast to our north. We're not going to get a house any bigger than we have today, and hopefully we're going to get that. So adding additional lot area is not the point here. It's de minimis. It's not going to affect the buildability of the lot. All it does is help us to better protect, the house from overwash, stormwater surging down the road. And the only other reason given for opposition to it was that, as proposed, the planning department said it doesn't appear that we're providing for pedestrian beach access for residents of the subdivision. And I think I've just clarified that we can modify the application to do that. We're not trying to obstruct pedestrian beach access for people that live in the Hollymere subdivision. So those are my comments. As I said, there were only two reasons given why this was not a good idea back in March, and I think hopefully I've addressed those.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's getting a little late, so before we go to the board for, there's really only one question. It's whether we find the request for the modification to the map to be reasonable. And I don't know how that's impacted by the applicant's, willingness to change that access. But we should probably hear from Eric, or I guess Will, on, in response to what was just stated. So Eric or Will or both, if you have to respond.
Yeah. So I guess really my main question here, I guess for Rick would be, you said that the reasoning here for this request is essentially to prevent a breach location where, you would have, storm surge going up the Bayview Avenue right of way. Does that mean that if you were allowed to claim a 10-foot wide portion, as you're proposing, that you would be proposing a hardened structure along the eastern side of the lot?
Yeah, we have our current application right now does propose a return. I don't remember how far back it comes in. I'd have to look at the application myself, but there is a return on the east side of the rock revetment, and it comes some distance down the road. Obviously, right now it's on our existing property line, and we get an additional 10 feet of room to move it over a little bit. So part of this would be to accommodate the return on the east side of the revetment.
Okay, so I guess I would just say then, the adequacy of the width of pedestrian access is probably something that is more appropriate for the town board to consider, when this does get to their review. And again, as Sam noted, this is a town board application. The planning board is in an advisory capacity in its review. But I would just remind the planning board that this is a location that a coastal erosion hazard area that under the town code regulations prohibits permanent hardened coastal structures. So I think if you're amending an urban renewal map for the primary purpose of installing such a structure, that is contrary to the regulations of the town code as they stand currently. And I would ask you to take that into account.
Well, let me just clarify. That's not the primary purpose. We have an application that already proposes a rock revetment. We'd be able to move it, as I said, 10 feet further east if we had additional roadway. But there's no purpose to have a 30-foot wide road for pedestrian beach access. There isn't. The road is 30 feet wide because it was originally designed to reach a house, and the lot on which such a house would be built is gone. So the original reason for 30-foot wide road has evaporated.
Rick, if I could add to that, we actually don't have a road right now. It exists as an unimproved pedestrian pathway that is largely occupied by Phragmites. And if you were to look towards the water, standing in the roadway, all you would see is literally a sand path up towards the bay. So I don't want to mischaracterize it as an existing road. It doesn't exist as a roadway.
Eric, does the suggestion that there be a change in the application change your analysis any?
I mean, somewhat. Rick is correct to point out that we had two primary objections, and one of them was obstructing pedestrian access. It sounds like they are now proposing something that will at least, pay some respect to that and provide it, at admittedly a smaller width. But again, I would agree with Rick absolutely that allowing vehicular access to the beach here would be completely inappropriate. And 10 feet probably is, in a practical sense, adequate for pedestrian access. So yeah, in that sense, that does change what we were saying. But, Rick did say, our other point was that you're adding lot area to a lot in an area that's very much imperiled by coastal storms and is in a severe flood hazard area. He mentioned that the additional lot area, so our comment was that adding lot area allows you more development. His comment was that, the additional lot area is de minimis. I would say that that's true, that it is not a significant amount of area, but it is an addition of area in an area that's a flood hazard zone. And the applicants are saying that they clearly intend to use that area to provide a structure that is not permitted under the town code. Whether that's the primary or sole focus of the application, it's the urban renewal map modification application. It's a stated reason for this request. So I don't know what benefit, I'm, phrasing it a little silly, but I was going to say I don't know what benefit that provides the town, but just to be clear, I see no benefit to the town to do that. So I don't know why you would amend the UR map modification for that, the UR map for that reason. So that's really our position on it.
So the planning department's statement that it does not recommend the proposal to move forward on the grounds that the residents of Bayview utilize this portion of the road in order to access the beach or Napeague Bay. That stands. Is that an accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
And
just to clarify.
Rick, let me just. I want to make clear, because if we're going to be finding it unreasonable, and these are the reasons that the planning board is giving us, I just want to make sure that we're all clear on it. Additionally, it's flood-prone location in a flood zone AE10 in New York State /Zone 3 suggests that further development should not be encouraged in the area. You adhere to that also, Eric?
Yes.
Okay.
Rick, go ahead. Dan, I just want to make a quick point.
Then I'll go to the board, Randy. Go ahead.
All right. I don't think the residents of Bayview are using the 10 feet that we're proposing to abandon. The pedestrian path that's there right now is pretty much in the center of the roadway.
Okay. All right. Let me go, and bearing in mind, it's getting a little late. We really only have one question. Does the planning board find the request for the modification to the urban renewal map to be reasonable? Anybody have any comment? I saw Randy, you had something.
Well, I have two quick things. One, Rick's offer that they would abandon and leave 5 feet in the middle if the neighbor does, but how do you make the neighbor do it is one question. The other question is really probably for Nancy. That is that the town of East Hampton has now acquired parcels on Bayview, which makes the town of East Hampton a property owner on the private street. And I wonder if that actually gives all the residents of the town rights to use that path.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Since those are questions, I think I should answer those. On number one, Randy, if we propose to abandon our 10 feet of road, and that's what the town board ultimately approves, then that's all we've abandoned. There's still 5 feet on our side of the center line unabandoned. On the other side of the road, the owner there has two choices. They can do nothing, in which case their 15 feet wide of roadway is still open to anyone at Bayview, so you still have 20 feet. And if they do have a proposal to abandon, they have to go through the same routine that we do, and presumably you and the town board would not allow them to close to the center line. So if we leave 5 feet, that means at a minimum, there'll always be 5 feet of pedestrian access. Realistically, you're not going to give the guy on the other side of the center line more than you give us. Second comment about the access to the road, that's a very good point, because there are situations in this town where the town has bought, property on private roads. And in my opinion, that does give the property, the town, the public, the right to use the private road to get to the town property. But the town property is not at the end of the road, so that doesn't give you beach access rights. Sorry.
Interesting.
Excuse me, Chairman, if I may, I just have one quick.
And then I really do want to have the board, because it's getting very late. So
Understood. So there was a concern about further development. The intent here is not to increase development on the site. The site is already developed. And as Rick said, we have an application before the Zoning Board of Appeals to rebuild further back. We have no intention of increasing the size of the house relative to the available lot size. if it were to increase. That our application will not change as a result of this. The house will not get bigger, and we're not going to withdraw that application and try to add 15 or 20 square feet based upon the formulas that apply to the lot. So the lot is already developed. Whether or not it's in the coastal erosion area, it's flood prone, yes, it is. But abandoning the roadway is not going to change the fact that our application will stay static.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just ask the board, to go around the table and yay or nay. Do you find the request for the modification of the urban renewal map to be reasonable? And Ed, last time tonight, that's a yes. Okay, Lou?
Sorry, Sam. I just have a question for Eric.
Of course, go ahead.
Eric, I just want to understand what you were saying about the revetment. So the town code prevents hard structures to be built. So are you saying that if this happens, if we allowed this or the town board allows this, that there will be an additional feet of revetment that will be built to protect this particular part of the road? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. What I was saying is that Rick was saying that they intend to use, if the UR map modification is granted and they do get to claim to the center line of Bayview Avenue, that they would, they are considering utilizing that for adding a hardened coastal structure.
And how did
so it wouldn't allow them to do that. They would still need to go through the channels of getting a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, getting any other applicable, permits for activities in a coastal area. So they would still need those approvals. However, I would just say that, the department would recommend denial of the request because it would give them more area for something that is prohibited by the code, and I don't see the public benefit to.
And I assume the existing revetment that's there now was able to be built because they were granted variances to do that.
There is a long and complicated permitting history with that probably isn't appropriate to get into this evening with the UR map modification, but not necessarily. There was an application that was approved that involved structures for protecting the residents from storm damage, but they were never approved for a permanent hardened coastal structure on this property.
Okay. Yeah, I'm against it, Sam.
Very well, thank you. Ian?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, this is a town board decision, and we're weighing in on the planning elements. I don't think this makes any planning sense at all. Either they want to use this extra land, in which case we think it's a bad idea because we want to discourage development here, or you don't, in which case I don't understand why you'd want to do this if it didn't you didn't use that particular piece of land or use it to benefit the development on the existing land. Of course, you have an application before the zoning board as well. That's in their hands, way outside of our purview. But, as a planning board, we're looking at planning elements, and I see no reason why. I appreciate the extra clarification by the applicant. Doesn't change anything for me, though. I just don't think this is a good planning move, and I'd recommend against it to the town board.
Very well. Next would be Randy.
I agree with Ian.
Sharon?
Agree.
With Ian? Okay. And,
Yes, sorry.
Sorry about that. Michael?
Against.
Yeah, I don't think this is in the interest of good planning at all. So, so the recommendation would be that it's not reasonable. We'll pass that on to the town board. But once again, it's the town board's call, not ours.
Well, we appreciate your time.
Quite all right. All right. And with the mention of the word time, and it is late, folks, and I apologize that we went as late as we did. But we did have a few public hearings, so Can I get a motion? Our next meeting is on the 26th of January, 2 weeks. Does anyone have anything else they wish to add? Any comments, questions? Michael, here's your chance.
It was an education.
Then you'll have a continuing education. Oh, thank you. Speaking of continuing education, make sure that you get, folks, your the town required education documents into the is it HR that gets it? The bullying thing.
Yes.
All right, and make sure that that you did that, and that you get those proofs into the HR department, and also the continuing education that you presumably completed for the end of the year, last year, and get those into Jody so that they can be in your file.
Jody, can you send me that financial disclosure document? I don't think I've gotten that.
Yes, I can send it again.
Thanks for reminding. And again, yes, that let's not forget to do, all of us, to do that. So, all right.
What a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, right.
Very good. Pass. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.